the Hingham School Committee meeting of March 13th, 2017, and I've called to order at 7:31 p.m. And go to our first item as approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on February 13th, 2017.
Any discussion? I have a comment on one section, section 6.7, when we discussed the Health and Wellness Center proposed warrant article, warrant item. I wanted to add a sentence, and I can read it to you. At the end of the paragraph, after it says, the committee discussed the merits of the article and each expressed their opinion on the issue. And I wanted to propose that we add, Foster School and the recent steam pipe issues were discussed and noted as an urgent facility issue for the administration to manage. Because, yeah, Foster School and the recent steam pipe issues were discussed and noted as an urgent facility issue for the administration to manage. And I bring that up because we did talk about that, and that was kind of the reason why we did, that for, I think for the majority, that why we didn't go forward with the issue. And so I felt like I wanted that in the record as opposed to it was just voted down. So.
I do remember you very clearly that night saying that what was going on with Foster was the thing that had precipitated your change of heart.
Carlos
so.
mentioned it,
Yeah.
and Cynthia too, so, that was my only comment on the minutes, so.
Yeah, I'd like to, may I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually mentioned about, that, I was in support of doing something at, the Health and Wellness Center, but wasn't as urgent as Foster.
Yeah. Okay, so, do we?
So I'll move to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on February 13th, 2017, as amended this evening with Liza's additional comments.
Do you have a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
And next, I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on February 27th, 2017.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
And lastly, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the joint school committee, advisory committee, and board of selectmen meeting held on February 28th, 2017.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Number 3, questions and comments. Audience comments are always welcome as agenda items are discussed. The school committee has set aside 15 minutes on this agenda to enable members of the audience to raise questions and make comments on any matter of general concern that is not on the agenda. Individual speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers are reminded that the meeting is being televised and are asked to respect the privacy rights of others. Comments against any individual are not allowed by Policy 3.7.5. Anyone? Okay, we'll move on. Superintendent's report.
You have in your packet, I believe, a copy of the most recent high school newsletter, and there are always particular things in there I'd like to comment on. And there's a great article about the math team, and they're not a group that gets a lot of publicity, as some of our athletic teams do, so it's well worth reading. There's a great article there with pictures about the recent Credit for Life activity, and I have received a number of emails from parents complementing that. And as well, I've included one parent letter about the middle school program studies night last Thursday, and I've received a fair number of those as well, and some positive comments on the all-town band concert. Those usually come with pictures from one particular parent who wants to be sure that we see the whole thing, so that's all good news. The March enrollment is there, very few differences from the prior month. This is the norm here. I would say that our preschool tuition is up a bit higher than it has been at this time of the year. That varies, you know, every year because children are eligible as they turn 3. And this year, we're already at the point that we were at last year at the end of the year. So I don't think it's an alarming number. It can simply mean differences in how many kids have, you know, early in the year birthdays. But that really is the major difference in terms of enrollment for March. I asked Jamie to make some comments on the progress of the social emotional goal, the tiered supports approach that we're taking. We're forming or have just formed the subcommittee that will spearhead that. That will have both faculty members from each one of the schools and parents on it. And so Jamie was sending out some recruiting notices to get people for that subcommittee. And I think one of those notices is in your package just to describe it. But Jamie, you want to comment further?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Many of you may have received the email notice calling for volunteers to serve as members of the task force. We actually have already received 44 responses as of the end of the day on Friday, and Karen's out today, so we'll see what tomorrow or Wednesday bring, depending. The goal is to have 2 meetings this spring to really plan the work going into the fall. We will be launching a major survey of all of our parents, all of our students in grades 3 through 12, as well as all of our faculty and staff sometime in the fall. And that will be to identify what the needs are of our student population. We will then begin by looking at what is sort of the tier 1 or what is the programming that all students will receive regardless of ability or skill development, and then identify those more target interventions for students who may be at risk following some kind of a screening tool. We know sort of what the general structure will look like, but we're looking for the task force that, as Dr. Gallo mentioned, comprised of faculty, administration, parents, community members, to help us in sort of decision making relative to what the specific tools will be. But we're going to start by actually collecting some data to figure out what the needs of the population are, and then build the multi-tiered model from there. So there'll be a lot more to come, I'm sure. But a year from now, you may be sick of hearing about it. But we're just getting it off the ground, and the committee is being co-chaired by myself, Heather Rodriguez, who's the director of counseling, and Brenna Rogers, who is a parent but is also the director of community services in Quincy for DMH. So we're excited, and we get every response we've received so far has been incredibly positive, and really excited of the work to come. So there'll be more to come, but that's just sort of where we are in the process. We're just beginning to form the task force, and that interest was to be received by our office by next Friday, I believe. So we have a couple of weeks of recruiting, but more to come.
Can you use that many people? Is it, or do you have a limit on the number of people that can be
So-
involved?
So with the 6 buildings, we're doing what a parent, a teacher, an administrator, a sort of a helper, somebody from the behavioral support, whether that's an adjustment counselor, psychologist, or guidance counselor. And at the high school, we'll have 3 students, a freshman, sophomore, and a junior, who will all serve. And then there'll also, because of the size of the group, there'll be some work that we do in the large group, but there'll also be some level-specific work that's happening for elementary, middle, and high. Particularly as we go into the survey development phase, each of the levels that I can actually tailor to the questionnaires to get more specific information for the buildings.
So you'll be able to use, I mean, you got 44 people already.
So we won't be able to use all 44, right? So
Will
it's
you
gonna be
find a
one.
way of,
I believe
engaging a larger-
if it's either be random
Okay.
random draw, or most people are telling us a little bit about their background and experience. So we're also going to be looking for people whose sort of background or interest lies in social emotional development. But, and we have everybody from sort of scout leaders to community leaders to clergy to people who work in mental health as a profession. So it's been a really strong positive response, and that was within 24 hours setting up the notice, 44 responses. And as Karen was leaving at 3 o'clock on Friday, she said, "They keep pouring in, but I gotta go." So we'll see what we find in the email.
Well, I hope
tomorrow.
we can find a way of garnering this outpouring of help, because the more bodies, the more minds
Involved,
involved, the better for our whole community. So
That's it.
I'm sure you'll have a creative way of finding another way to use everyone.
I mean, the other piece that's great is we're leveraging our parent and community volunteers to serve as sort of parent ambassadors on the topic. So these people will come in, we'll sort of hear a lot about the rollout, about the programming, about why we're making the decision we're making, and then sort of help us in terms of our communication strategy, right? To sort of get the word out to the community, and will inform us on sort of, let's try this, less of that, more of this, and that will really be community members who will let us know how it's best to do some outreach and make sure that we're having an ongoing community-based conversation rather than just us working in isolation. So we're excited.
Great.
More to come.
Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody have other questions?
The survey, is that gonna be for the entire school population?
It will, grades 3 through 12. Yeah, there's, when you get into surveying and sampling in primary grades, so kids who are sort of 5, 6, 7, you sort of go back and forth on what's the best way. Have they really developed self-awareness? Are they really able to answer about themselves? And we've piloted sort of some different, smiley faces or frowny faces, but in reality, grade 3 is really when we begin to see the self-awareness develop where kids can actually respond about themselves. And we'll do, all of the buildings, when the time comes, we'll coordinate schedules to make sure that every class cycles through. And there'll be an opportunity for parents to opt out of the survey, so it's none of this is mandated. But we're hopeful that with the right community support and communication about what we're trying to do, that we'll also have the full support of the community in administration. And also we'll be knocking on doors when the time comes to encourage parents and community members to also complete the survey, to sort of tell us how they perceive the issues and what they think are the most urgent, pressing matters.
Okay. Great. Okay, communications.
That's it for me.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
I'm sure Brad has
Brad.
the sports stuff.
We haven't seen you in a while,
Yeah,
so
I
welcome
was
back.
Out on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of last week.
Oh.
Alright, so start off regarding sports too. Most of the sports have ended with great playoff runs, and the Hingham boys hockey team is awarded the James Malloy Award for Sportsmanship, which will be presented at TD Garden,
Great.
and it's transitioning from winter sports. Both today was the final meeting for the ski team, and today was the starting of meeting for the girls lacrosse team. And the Hingham High School Talent Expo is scheduled for tomorrow night, but due to the snow day, it has been rescheduled to March 27th, but that date is still subject to change. A group of students from the orchestra, band, and chorus classes will be visiting Nashville, and they will depart this Thursday. And while in Nashville, they will be visiting the Grand Ole Opry, and will be attending the Nashville Symphony, and they will be returning this Sunday. Finally, the senior art show will be this Thursday night in room 103. I actually got to tour it myself today, and it's incredible to see what some of my own classmates are doing. And there was graphics, photography, ceramics, pottery, and paintings and sketches, which were all created by seniors. And finally, the teacher of the month for March is Ms. Rob. Any questions or comments?
Just one question on the art show, is it just Thursday night, or
Is it for a few days, do you know?
I know that it's open during school. I had a G block study, and so I was able to go visit it. I know that I think people are welcome to walk through during school hours if you're in the building for students. I'm not sure if there's other day. I'm only aware of this Thursday night.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other communication, do you have anything? Okay. Yeah.
Jumping on the newsletter, I was very impressed by the debate team as well. There's an
Yeah.
incredible,
Yes.
Job,
I should
so-
have mentioned that because that was an incredible record.
yeah.
I happened to be in the high school the day that they were waiting for the bus to take them, and the number of kids that were involved was just incredible,
Yeah.
incredible.
And they seem to all be debating each other for the gold medal. So, that's a good thing.
Yeah. It is. I received a number of communications, and I couldn't find my file with my email log, so, but I wanted to make you aware, the Hingham Energy Action Committee contacted us about they're looking at applying to be a green community, so I'm gonna follow up with Ed on Long Range Planning and Dot and John what that all means. I understand the Hingham Energy Action Committee has contacted the schools in the past, and so,
But we have responded with some questions that we had, and we have not received
okay,
the
so,
answers. to that.
hopefully we will open a dialogue with them to answer our questions on that. We did receive, which I forwarded to you, a letter about data on per student spending. And we'll delve, I did respond to the parent who sent us the, data and just told him thank you, we'll digest it, but I think when we get into the long range, more of into our vision, we can refer back to that. And also on that, I wanted to mention to you that I refound some data that Acton Boxborough had done some benchmarking data on budgets last year, and they had forwarded us their report in September, and I had forgotten that I had it. So I think we have some other benchmarking information from other communities that I'm hoping later on the agenda we can talk about where we go with the long-range plan. Then Aileen and I received an email from a parent about foster school and just asking us if we were looking at the climate change and floodplain maps, and Aileen responded, we definitely are.
Give them updated copies if they'd like them.
I received one email just as follow-up on the high school principal search process and shared information we had heard at our last meeting. I received a letter from someone who attended an event where the Cambridge school system spoke about the distribution of free feminine hygiene products to all students, which is a $200,000 program, and I provided her some information from our nurses about what we do for young girls, so I haven't heard back from her again, so I don't know if we'll be able to add that to our budget, but it's certainly important issue for.
Because we do provide free things.
Well, they have it in the bathrooms,
Yeah,
like,
I know,
for,
yeah.
yes, so girls have access through the nurse. And then we got an email, maybe we all got it, from the World Robotics Championships that are inviting us to send a team to India at the end of April, and, so, thank you, but we'll pass this year, so. So those were all the communications that, so some of them I received myself, wanted to make you guys aware of that.
Could you repeat the first student one?
Oh, the student spending?
Oh, the per student.
Yeah, per student
I thought you said
spending.
first student.
No,
I
no,
was wondering
per
what data
students,
they-
yeah, no, per students, yeah. Yeah, and
John
I
has
shared
met-
that with you.
John has
Oh.
met with, both parents.
Oh,
Who
okay.
were interested in that.
Oh, good.
Was the energy action report that you just mentioned, I thought I saw that, was that sent to us by Scott Sear,
Yeah,
CYR?
interestingly, I got it on paper from our Energy Action Committee.
Is that,
That's-
is
so
that the?
we'll comment
we
on
don't-
that.
We'll mention his name. right around
Yes,
time.
from Scott
Oh, yeah.
Sear, who's chair.
Yeah.
And then it sent me just the PowerPoint presentation from the state on the green communities.
John and I requested that.
Oh, you did? Oh, he didn't say that in his letter. Well, then good, I can pass this on to you.
Here it is.
Here you go, Ed. You can pass that down.
As you'll
Well,
hear
I
later-
copied you on the email
as
that I
you'll hear
sent
later
him, so.
tonight, He's our new best friend.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Glad I mentioned it. All right, so on to new business. 6.1. to discuss the school committee's operating budget for fiscal year 18 and hear proposed changes from the administration. So as last week, the advisory committee made their recommendation and voted on the budget, and the Board of Selectmen also voted on their budget, and the Board of Selectmen voted first, and they voted the advisory committee's education subcommittee's recommendation, which the ACES subcommittee, and also when the Board of Selectmen voted, Linda Kutsch, the chair of that subcommittee, made her second recommendation, because the ACES subcommittee made two recommendations. One was a recommended budget number, and the second was to discuss the sustainability and recommending doing a long-term financial planning for the town based on sustainability of budgets, if I got that right. And the Board of Selectmen, I watched this on the HCAM, had a fairly lengthy discussion about the sustainability issue, and Mary Power presented some very interesting charts that showed the current forecasts document that shows the 2% increase each year, and then she translated it with more historic data of actual historic data of the average increases at the education budget at about 4.5%, and some other personnel budgets in town and other things. And they were starkly different charts. The forecast with the 2% increases showed, budget availability, and then the more historic data showed deficits over time. So I think we're getting some traction from the Board of Selectmen, with the current board, of engaging in this discussion about doing this long-term financial planning. I think that's good for us. That's been on our agenda for a couple of years. So more to follow on that topic. Maybe Linda was there more discussion at the advisory committee about that issue?
I think the advisory committee, there was consensus and support for
Okay.
action plans.
Yes, understandably.
But I think, it's an absolute
Great. Okay. So, then at the advisory committee, thank you, Carol and Ed and Dot, for providing the report. The advisory committee voted to add an additional $48,000 to the subcommittee's recommendation so that we could fund the nurses as are mandated by the state. So that was good news. So now Dot is going to take us through where we are, and then we can discuss what we want to do next.
So, on this slide that you have that's on the screen, but also I think you all got a copy, and there are copies on the table for audience, indicates that actually the tale of like a week and a half, all these votes happened. So the school committee on the 27th did vote a budget, knowing that we likely were going to have to make some further reductions, and on that night we didn't actually know what the further reductions were going to be. So that vote was what was our budget at the time, but you voted that budget, and that was a 4.98% budget, and it was a $2.3 million increase over the prior year, and the amount $49,983,377. That was on February 27th. The AC subcommittee met the very next night, and they determined that their recommendation to the full committee, full AdCom, would be at a 4.4%, and it would be an increase of $2.1 million, actual total of $49,713,724. And that was the recommendation they were making at the advisory committee meeting that was on the 7th, last Tuesday. In the meantime, on Thursday, and they did make that recommendation to the full subcommittee, to the full committee. On Thursday night, earlier in the evening, I guess if you call 9:30 early, but anyway, the selectmen discussed the budget and voted, and they voted the figure that they believed that the ACs, that the full AdCom was going to vote later that evening. And so that was the 4.4%, $2.1 million and 49,713,724. Later that evening, probably about 11 o'clock, I think, at that point, the advisory committee,
11:30.
yeah, thanks to a motion by Linda that was seconded and discussed and received good support. And so instead of the 2.1 million that we had anticipated would be awarded to us, it was 2.148973, which we're very appreciative of it. And the talk about why it was appropriate to do that was around the issue of adding the second dually certified nurse at the high school. Since that really was something we have to do anyway, it's a mandate. And so that 48,973 is the net of changing our nurse, RN, who has been paid as a para, to next year being an RN, who is also DESE certified and will be paid therefore on the teacher scale. And this is the net cost of making that happen. So that's where we are at the moment. Today, I received information that we had another teacher retirement coming. Not quite ready to announce the name, but we will be able to find a savings. That person is going to retire very early in the school year, so we need to work out whether we would hire someone from the beginning of the year and continue to pay this person to do something else likely so that we have continuity, or whether we would make a change at the time the retirement would occur. So that's a little iffy, but there will be some savings. We believe that there is at least one more retirement, and we have a small savings of 10 to 12 from someone who is taking a leave, and the replacement will give us some savings, but not as much as some of the others that we've had. So things are still happening. John is also looking again at utilities, particularly, is it gas, John?
I just locked contracts in for diesel fuel and oil.
Diesel fuel, okay. And there'll be some savings
Yes.
there. So we'll have an update for you at the next meeting, where we hope it will be a number that would close that remaining gap, which is 221 at this point, in the event that you want to revote your budget. That could be it could be at any point before town meeting, but I think we'll have some significant dollars to be able to share with you at the next school committee meeting, which is on Tuesday, the 28th.
Roger, can I just
Yeah.
make a point?
Yeah.
I was at that 9:30 meeting with the selectmen, but to be perfectly honest with you, I bailed at 10:30. And I think a big thank you goes to Carol and Dr. Gallo for sticking it out, because.
Well, a big thank you goes over here to Linda.
As Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over.
Yeah.
The subcommittee,
Mm. Yeah.
Oh, thanks to all.
Yeah. Okay. So, so I had, communicated to you when I was doing the agenda that I didn't want to revote the budget tonight, because I felt like it's a lot, very quick moving. We haven't had a chance to digest everything. So we know that there's some proposed changes coming, sort of natural progression, but I do want to hear from, at our last meeting, we voted the budget as, where we were with level services, knowing that it was a little higher than where we thought the advisory committee would come in, and whether tonight we want to talk about if any of us have things that we're thinking about we really want to have, or we wanna, and then remove some things to make room for those things. If we wanna have that conversation at our next meeting. But, you know, it is our budget, so I don't want to, you know, I wanna make sure everyone has their thoughts heard. So if we wanna even start talking about it a little bit tonight, or we can air those, and then at our next meeting, I think at our next meeting, it makes sense to finish this up.
Liza, one thing I should have added is that most times the changes are good news. We have
Right.
one other that we're trying to confirm that would not be good news financially, and that
Yeah.
is because we believe that we have another vocation application, not an acceptance, but
Yeah.
application. But we want to confirm that because it was brought to us by someone other than the parent.
Okay.
So we'll verify that, but it could be that that would be a deficit of a little more than $20,000.
I was just gonna say, it depends on which vocational school
Yes,
it is,
it is,
so.
yeah.
Okay, that is okay.
Dr. Gallo, is it a fair statement that when we voted at, school committee voted for
The board,
49,983, we were $269,000 out of balance. Am I correct in assuming that at this point, everything else being equal, we're down to 220?
221.
221, got it, okay.
That's the other chart.
Thank you.
The chart. The summary.
Oh, yeah,
This
it's
is-
on the
this is
other
next-
side
It's the next slide.
of the chart.
There's another slide.
I'm sorry, let me show you that one. So you can see down at the very bottom,
Yeah.
the gap is now 220,680,
680.
and that's a 4.5%.
Liza, so I would just like to throw out, I mean, I think we'll probably talk about it tonight and perhaps next week.
Yeah.
Or next meeting.
Yeah.
The one position, which I think I mentioned before, is the post-secondary tutor.
Yep.
Which was not in base budget.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a position we created three years ago, and we keep losing people, and I know we have a person this year who has been doing a fabulous job and has jumped right in, taken over a lot of responsibilities. So, to the extent there was a way to get that included in the base budget, that would be something that I would like to see us add.
Or if that were in a category, another way to attack that one would be in that category that we used last year, of if there are further
Correct.
changes in personnel.
And this wouldn't be
then
adding a
use it.
person, because she
No, it's
already
not.
is
The
an
person is there and
existing
already gets benefits.
employee, right. So I would like to see that her wages, or that position's wages get added to, because I think it brings a lot of value to the counseling department.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a consensus that we would like to see in this town, that beefed up a bit. So, I think that would be important, and I would certainly go along Dot with your recommendation if it turns out to be some funds that we weren't planning on. That would be at the top of my list.
Yes.
Well, I think that that's an important one. My only concern still remains that, you know, we kind of have to fund the NEASC, and we have to fund the high school health teacher. And with just those two things, I'm worried about how we're going to get to where we need to get.
Right.
But hopefully, because if you took the 309,000 that was just included in the base budget, and you take out the nurse, the NEASC, and the health teacher.
And the
that-
kindergarten teacher, because that's gonna be paid from fees.
And the kindergarten teacher, yeah, you'd have to take that out. And also that 10,000's really only moved from someplace else.
Yes, it's not a
It's
new
not,
cost.
Right.
it's not actually a real cost. But that's still, you know, $100,000 of things right there that,
Right. We're believing that because, and this idea really came to us from Dan on AC's committee, that the NEASC is a one-time thing, so that we may be able to fund that from a revolving account or a place where we couldn't say ongoing, that
Okay.
would be 20,000 that we could, take every year, so we
Yeah,
have to be
that would be
careful about
helpful.
what we
Okay.
take out of those accounts, but that is a one-time expense, it's not personnel, first of all, and secondly, it's a one-time, so that we can treat that in a different way in terms of getting, funding for the 1 year.
So that's on your
That's
list
what
of
we're
things
looking
to
for,
look
that,
at? Okay.
yeah, funding from there, so
Okay.
that gets the number down to 200 that would need to
Yeah.
be reduced from,
Okay.
things like ongoing positions and
Okay.
so. So you might wanna continue to think of your things and then wait until you see what we come up with, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
there may be
true.
different priorities of your things or our things,
Mhm.
and share that information.
Anybody else? Carlos?
Liza,
Where is Kay idea about the HR person falls into this budget? I mean, because I think that, with all the changes that we have seen happening with the couple of principals, and then, with staff retiring, obviously that position would be imperative to have. So I would like to see us moving towards, really considering hiring an HR person, as was Kay's, proposal.
Well, just to chime in, I think also for looking ahead for a smooth transition with leadership, and I liked Carol's idea of maybe just starting with a half FTE, to just get that moving in the right direction.
I don't know where that is. I know that, well, I can tell you some things I've heard from that side of the building, from the town side, is that there's a reluctance of adding personnel, and adding a person. If we have one already on staff that we're increasing the salary, that's one thing, but adding a person is a concern of theirs from the sustainability standpoint, because personnel costs are greater costs. We've started this message of, we're looking at the long-term vision and where we need to go and per pupil cost, and when I've been looking at other towns, one of the big differences I see is in our administrative staff compared to other towns. And so I think, we really need to look at that. The other conversation I've had with a few people is, when we're looking at this town-wide long-term plan, are there ways that maybe we can share services better? And so would there be the opportunity for, and I don't know how it would even work with.
It wouldn't work
I
well
mean,
in this role,
maybe we
because the
need-
message is retirement and all
Yeah.
that goes with that.
So, I don't know how we would fit it in this year, but it's definitely on that draft of our vision, and I would say especially an HR person would, I agree with you that it's a really high priority. If there's a creative way of thinking of something, or
Well, we didn't-
rejiggering administrative staff
We didn't put
here
it in
central
this year
office.
because it was a level services budget, number one. And number two, we also had a high priority last year for a central office position, and that was Liz O'Neill's position that we ended up combining with something else and funding it at, in terms of new money in the budget, at $30,000. So that's why we did not put it in. The cost of such a person would be well over $100,000, and that's a tough hit, no matter when you do it, for an additional position. So that's why we didn't forward it. We certainly agree that it's an important position for us to have. It's the one piece that is missing at central office at this point.
I do want to add, I understand the town's concern that this sustainability and this adding another person is going to be with us, and that will increase the budget over the year. But I do see this one position as an advantage to all students, parents, employees in the Hingham School District, as well as a possible cost savings long-term, just because of the expertise we would get from that position. So yes, it may add to the budget, but it also may help with this sustainability, having that expertise in our district.
Uh,
Having an HR person, all of the HR issues that I've heard, or all of the issues that I've been hearing since being on school committee have been HR related, and I just think that.
Really? What, like what? We're not talking special ed.
I'm sorry?
We're not talking a special ed service.
No, I'm not referring to special
Oh.
ed either.
Personal.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure I really wanna go into this during a public discussion, but I just feel that an HR person can look at the structure of our, district, can look at, we've had some issues with since you brought up special ed, with the Walker report saying that we have a lot of paras in our, or too many paras in our, school, so we need to start looking at those things. And
But
I
that
think
would not be in a school setting, an HR function.
Why not?
I don't know anywhere where it would be. It would help us in terms of professional development. It would help us in terms of all of the many things that the MSBA requires of us. It would take some of the load off of our payroll person. It would take some time for the things that Jamie and I do, relative to keeping track of licenses is one thing, somewhat the professional development is another thing. Running the mentor program, things like that, but I don't see.
Well, I think too, we have to then define the role, because in HR, you usually have a benefits and compensation person,
Mhm.
and then you also have the professional development side.
All right,
So I
benefits and
think we would also have to
compensation
look
is a
at
town
the-
function.
I'm sorry?
Benefits and compensation, the whole benefits thing is town side.
So that means that if an employee takes leave and, whatever issues that person might have with their compensation, they go to the town?
In terms of things like retirement and health insurance, they do. Other kinds of compensation are taken care of here by our payroll person. So some of those things that are taken care of by payroll would go there. I'm not suggesting it's not important. We said, what's the most important thing to add here? But when I look at having to cut 220 more thousand to get through the recommended budget, to add another 100 plus to that is just not something I could see doing in this year unless we take it out of what's currently in the budget. So
I think we should make this a high priority for next year, so that we have time to define the role and advocate for, that it's it's a new item, so that if we're in the same level services mode of budgeting again, that we can really justify it. But I think we should really talk through all these issues of exactly what the person would do and make sure that, it's because some of the things, so one of the things on the town budget, it was approved as a new item, is a benefits coordinator because of the health insurance transfer to the GIC, and that person would benefit the school's employees who take the health insurance as well as the town side. So that
I
will
think
help
we do
with
need
this,
to
but
get the job description
yeah,
that typically is in
define
a
it.
school setting, because I'm not seeing we're not seeing the same functions that this kind of
Well,
person
then
is doing.
but I think we should look into that.
Hmm?
And like you said, when you look at different school districts,
Yep.
it's unheard of to not even have an HR person.
No, I totally agree with you that this would be a high priority for me to add administrative staff, but then we should look at, the whole staff and what's the right way
Well,
of
we
using.
realigned some of the things, that's for sure.
If there's a need to realign too, to make the
Which I
whole
think is part of the
central
function
offices.
of an HR
Yeah.
director, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else that people have off the top of their head? I would like to see if, I don't know if we can, the Chinese teacher, fitting in that, making it full-time, just because of the volume of students at the high school, but, in addition to the post-secondary tutor, I don't know if that's been explored at all for the.
I don't believe that we're gonna need full-time,
Okay.
but we'll know that, but we won't know
Right.
that till the first week in May.
Right, right. Okay, and then, John, there were a couple of things I had listed of if we were going to reduce, and one of them was on athletics. We had talked about the contracted buses. Whether we could use our own buses for that instead of contracting out for the extra athletics buses.
Well, we have been, Patrick's been doing one run a day anyway, so, you know, we could sort of look into that.
I think that was $10,000 I had a note of. So maybe we could,
10,000.
well, maybe we could, there's a line item in the budget. I know we were talking about the possibility of, since we have the new bus lease.
Right.
And the 2 extra buses, that we might be able to no longer contract out for that service, but use our own and maybe save some money.
Yeah, we could certainly, I mean, we have been taking on some runs because we're not obligated to take all the runs that we contract for, you know, a certain rate for runs, and
Okay.
we can float those number of runs. So this year, with our new buses, we have been doing at least one run a day, you know, for athletics. And that's really because the buses are being used by the elementaries. So we should, I would think at the end of the year, we'll show some savings on that. Now, another thing that Patrick and I have discussed, if there's a possibility of getting another bus, that, you know, even if we were sort of a used bus, we want to price out, you know, how much it would cost us to do it in comparison to how much it would cost, you know, be a first student. So there may be some savings in
Okay.
there. I'm not sure that I had any $10,000 figure lines or
Maybe
anything
I
like
estimated that as a possibility.
I mean, it truly is possible,
Okay.
you
We
know.
can't do all of the ones because
You-
of having our own school
Yeah.
runs. We may be able
Yeah.
to do like one a day,
Yeah.
but we can never replace all of what's contracted.
Oh,
Because
okay.
we use
Because you
the
need
20
multiple
buses.
buses.
every day.
You know, we use the 20 buses for the regular,
Right.
and we got the 22 because we need to have a spare.
Right.
Right? And what happens is, you know, once you get into the maintenance mode, we're sort of operating constantly on 21 buses, so we have 20 plus a spare.
Okay.
Because there's some bus, you know, going out on maintenance or something like
Okay.
that. But, you know, I have talked about Patrick where he's been looking at some of the rates. We have the rates that we would be for first student. And, you know, maybe a possibility of making another investment with these leased buses are less expensive. You know, we could perhaps even get a used one, so it would be $10,000 for another bus, right?
Right.
You know, maybe something less. And so we can look at the cost-benefit analysis of possibly grabbing another bus that could do athletic runs, and then we could use a sub for that. We
Yeah.
don't have to, we wouldn't have to,
Okay.
you know, hire anybody for it, you know, because we have the subs on the payroll.
Okay.
So that could be a potential savings. You know, and I don't know where it will come into, but I am sure that operationally there would be some savings.
Okay.
I'm not sure the level.
All right, just trying to get
Yep.
as many people in with our kids in their education and
Absolutely.
mental health as possible, so. Okay. Anybody else for now? Okay. So our next meeting, we'll try and wrap this up. Okay. 6.2, to hear an update from the Long Range Planning Subcommittee on the fiscal 18 capital budget allocation recommended by the Capital Outlay Committee to the Advisory Committee and act as appropriate. So Ed is Chair of Long Range Planning.
I'll jump in and.
He will
John,
take us.
help us out. We proposed a capital outlay, we requested from capital outlay a $1,151,702 capital outlay program. In fact, we were allocated, we were to be allocated $850,822 with a delta or a difference of $300,088. This was one of the two big topics that came up at our last long-range planning meeting. And we talked about the amount, how will we deal with this, and so on. And We talked about things that we may have to bypass, how we're gonna come up with this money. And I think it's still a work in progress. John, you wanna jump in?
Yeah, sure. Ed said what we actually, the school committee had voted previously on what we should be presenting to the capital outlay. So capital outlay went through their process and they actually cut our budget, cut our recommendations by $300,880. And, so, and basically, I think they approved a budget of $815,820. So I got $2 in here, there's a rounding happening in there, so, I mean, if the school committee were to vote, it would be $850,820, so we sort of matched the long range, the capital outlay committee, and I think advisory committee's vote, for that number as well. So they deferred a number of items and they removed a couple of items. We had, the big one that they removed was the Health and Wellness Center, for 89.5, which we had in there. They deferred the refinish of the boys and girls locker rooms at the high school for like $35,000. And then they deferred energy efficiency projects. So, typically we'd do a lighting project or we'd change over, a pump or, and we used to have specifically identified those to a school. This year, I took it at a system level and I said an energy efficiency project, which could be the most economical we found, whether it be a lighting revamp or a variable frequency drive, but they removed that. They also removed that we had $35,000 in there for unanticipated repairs. Now, these weren't the repairs that were a faucet. This was in addition at a system-wide level. And, we've presented that each year based on the fact that, we know once we get into our operations that big stuff happens and we have to get it repaired, but there's just no money in the budget for it because it's hard to say, in October, what's gonna happen throughout the, not even that current year, but the next year, what type of project's gonna go bad. But they removed that as well. And then also they took a look at some of the capital, the baseline capital. We had proposed $215,000 this year, and they removed $20,000 from that and put it at last year's baseline. And Joe Andrews, speaking with him, he thinks he can work with the 193. We also there was also some enhancement money, so we had money in there for some tablets, for the pilot tablets at the high school, and then also some additional loaner Chromebooks. And so they cut back that money from $68,000, I think, down to they cut that by $35,000. And if I'm sure that some of the middle school Chromebooks will be usable and stuff, so I think we can live with that as well. And then they deferred the truck for the facility and procurement manager, Doug Foley's truck. We'll be getting the project coordinator and then we'll still be short a truck for Doug. And I think that we can look at some other alternatives for that too. So all in all, they cut $300,880 off the budget. But looking at the budget that they give, I think that, it's a good budget, it's solid. I think it's a significant amount of money. And I think, they also cut roof money too. So roof, we always had budgeted $50,000 for repairs, and they cut that in half. And that's okay, because we've actually sent out a few of our people are now trained in repairing roofing. So, I think I can live with that too. And we all know if we end up with emergency situations, we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to draw on some other funds, or we would have to go back for a reserve fund transfer to kind of fill these things. So, that's sort of their actions based on our budget. And, all in all, when I look at the number, I do believe that we can live with it. I think it is generous, and I think that we can get a lot accomplished with it. And, aside from the truck, which I think we can look at some other alternatives in trying to purchase that, I think that, I would recommend that the school committee, approve or take a revote on that. And, vote the budget of $850,820, which is $850,820, which is what matches the capital outlay recommendation.
So your prior vote was on what to take to the capital outlay. So this would be voting on what to,
John, I have a question on the vehicle. What would you, recommend, still purchasing a vehicle or looking at a different vehicle? Because that I remember as being a very high priority.
Yeah, I would recommend still purchasing the vehicle and perhaps using building revolving or field revolving or
Okay.
a little bit from both of those accounts to sort of purchase that big vehicles, because I think it is very, very important.
Can we lease a vehicle instead of buying it?
I could certainly look at leasing.
I'm just
Yep.
looking at it as maybe that's a better way to spread the cost.
Not a bad
Yeah,
idea.
I don't know if we
you know,
can as a
right.
municipality.
You know,
but-
so here's the reality, so when I say the reality, you know, initially when I put this in, I never thought that Doug would be out there plowing and stuff, but he is out there plowing.
Because speaking of tomorrow
So-
and
Yes,
Wednesday.
Right, you know, so, in that sense, you know, so I don't know that we wanna lease a vehicle that's going to get beat up.
Yeah.
Because that is just, that's hard labor.
Right.
And, you know, so in that sense, I don't think that leasing would be the best thing. I mean, initially, I thought it would be a four-wheel drive truck, and it would just be for him to get around, maybe throw something in the back, get it to the guys, but, you know, after seeing the experience, I think that it will change, and I think that he has a willingness to do it too, and, I think that, you know, we'd be better off getting the bigger truck and sort of
And the
owning it.
experience and skill to go with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if it's gonna be used like that, I mean, it probably is better not to buy anything new anyhow, so we probably would wanna get a used, I would think you'd be looking at used vehicles. If you're gonna be beating them up, why would you be doing that to something brand new, so?
Well, I think the brand new, if you bought something that's beat up, that's just,
No,
it
it's slightly
will
used.
die.
I mean, you know, something with,
Yeah.
at least something with 20 or 30,000 miles on it, just to save a little. I mean, you can save a lot
Yeah.
of money
Yeah, no, we could look at
by
that.
buying something very slightly used. If you know you're gonna beat it up, why buy absolutely brand new? Buy something with 20, 30,000 miles, you can still save a decent amount of money doing that.
Right. I mean, we could look at that, you know, and see what the options are for getting that off the state contractor, so.
There's a big difference between a pickup truck that's got 20 or 30,000 miles and the same pickup truck with the same mileage that's been plowed. Plowing, you talk to the guys that plow and they don't like the winters that we had 2 years ago. You say, oh, they made a lot of money. They beat the Sam Hill out of their trucks. It just beats up the transmission.
I mean,
So
but
if
we'd
you buy a
have to.
pickup truck and then put a plow on it, that's different than getting one that's all set up used. 'cause
Right,
that's
maybe
used
there are
because-
pre-owned ones that are like that, you know, some pre-owned and it hasn't been used
Yeah.
in plow duty and, you know, I mean, cause he doesn't have to have a huge plow, but I mean, it would be good for him to have a smaller plow, cause it could clean up some other areas and stuff, you know, but that would be, you know, certainly a good option. We could look at pre-owned. And you're right, that could save a lot of money. And if it hasn't been subjected to hard duty, because I'm sure there's a lot of like 2-year leases out there and the people just turn their trucks over. We just have to find, you have to find the cherry, you know, you have to find the good one.
Okay,
And-
so we're gonna try and still get that truck for him
Yeah.
by looking at possible pre-owned. So we'll get somebody that just drives it to the commuter rail station and parks it,
Well, a lot
but
of
it's
people
still a
lease
good
them. Yeah, a lot of people lease them.
F-150 truck.
I think it would be through a pre-owned dealer
Right,
though, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because we
No,
have
I'm
to have
not- no,
warranty
Rob,
and we have
no,
to have the,
just, you know,
We know you know what you're doing,
yeah,
we're good.
so we'll
Patrick
look
will
at
take those.
that, and we'll look at revolving accounts, and then natural savings and capital.
Sure.
I wanna respect the capital outlays their view of
Yeah.
why they, I thought it was a pretty good case at that meeting that this was a priority, but.
well, they deferred it, you know,
Yeah,
they say,
they
oh,
did
yeah, let's
defer
put
it,
it off
yeah.
till next year, and I think that the defer, we've already, it's been, you know, by the time we finish this, it's 2 years,
Yeah,
and that would put it into a third year, so,
Yeah.
you know.
All the more reason not to buy a brand new one though, because maybe we will get a brand new one in 2 years. So maybe we do want one that's only gonna last.
If we get a good one, maybe we won't need a new, well, see, well, we're gonna get into that stage where the maintenance trucks do have to turn over too, right? You know, we're in the mode now where we have special ed transportation vehicle that has to turn over every year, okay, because of the age of them. 8 of them, so about 1 every year, so they're getting to be 7, 8 years old. And those are hard miles. So our maintenance vehicles are similar. Now, we have picked up a couple in the past. We got one for Katie, and Paul had got one several, probably 3 or 4 years ago. That's the one we're using now, because we don't have the project coordinator position in place yet. We haven't hired that person as a replacement. But when that person comes, we will be down a truck. So, but then there's some older ones out there that will have to be, turned over, so.
All right, Ed, do you wanna make a motion?
I would. So let me make a motion that we accept the proposed capital outlay recommendation of $850,820, and thank the Capital Outlay Committee for their hard work.
Second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
6.3, to discuss the proposed statement of interest for Foster School and act as appropriate. So, at our last meeting, we voted to move ahead on this process, but we have to make the formal steps in the SOI process that we need to vote
They're not voting, that's an example.
on. We need to have a vote
This is a sample, it's a draft.
for
We're gonna talk about this.
submitting the statement of interest that is recorded in our minutes, and then the minutes are presented to the MSBA as part of the statement of interest. I believe it's just that part of the minutes. And then the selectmen will vote in a similar way to include that in the statement of interest. And so,
Can I talk about what you have in front of you?
yes, I
Okay.
would appreciate
So-
that. Thank you.
So there's 2 things, and one is the actual vote that is basically phrased to say that you met on the 13th here, and that you've, which is before the date of the SOI, which is April 7th, and that, on or before April 7th, the statement of interest, that you'll allow the statement of interest to be submitted to the MSBA by the superintendent, okay? And it says what the reasons are on the SOI, and there's like 8 reasons on the SOI. And the reason that we're focusing on was that it doesn't meet the authority, future replacement or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, okay? So that's basically they have 8 types of different priorities. That is the priority that we're going to select. And then it says, provide a description of what the issues are with the building. So the following description: the building was built in 1951 and does not meet current code and significantly lacks environmental quality for natural lighting, artificial lighting, fresh air ventilation, and evenly distributed heat and cooling temperatures to enhance the educational environment. Those are words that I took out of the 10-year master plan when they evaluated that. In addition, classroom configuration does not allow for uninterrupted instruction. Several classrooms have no natural light. The building envelope and window systems are inefficient, and the steam heating distribution system and electrical systems are failing due to deterioration. And then it goes, this is regular MSBA language again, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting the statement of interest form, the Mass School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or comments should be the Town of Hingham District to file an application for funding the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So the key is this vote, I have to have this vote, the school committee has to take this vote. And then in order to meet, for when I submit the SOI, I have to submit it with forms that are duly sort of executed. So this will give us time to have the minutes reflected so that on the 28th you can review the minutes. And Liza, you have to sign those minutes.
Yep.
I have to do something similar to this with the Board of Selectmen. So I've sent up a mocked up draft to the Board of Selectmen, to Tom Mayo, and said, you know, I'm happy to go in front of the Selectmen and explain what the process is, okay? So it's just important that these votes get executed properly prior to submitting the application on the 7th. Now, this other form that you see here, this Mass School Building Authority, this is all gonna be done online, so you'll see this, it has a submission date of 2/17 on it. This is just the draft, because I wanted to tell you the other step on this too, Liza, and this
Yeah.
has to do, so these are all the certifications that you will make, basically, when I submit the application electronically, okay?
Okay.
So I'm gonna submit the application electronically. It's going to come out with a date on it.
Yep,
I had to take that paper, and then I have to have that signed by you,
okay.
by the Board of Selectmen, and by the Superintendent, okay?
Okay.
But I just wanted you to see what it is that you're going to have to be signing.
Okay.
And basically, when you go through the MSBA, it's hard to get their template. You have to go in. So when I printed out the draft has this date on it, but it's
Okay.
not going to be that date. It's going to be the date that I actually submit the SOI, okay? Which will be before April, on or before April 7th.
I hope so.
Yes. Well, because the other thing too is they say that all the signed copy has to be received by
Okay.
the 7th. So my plan would be for the meeting of the 28th.
Yep,
You know, we take this vote now and you're telling us to do it. The meeting of the 28th, I would be able to pull down the new draft of the actual words that I'm
Okay.
using for the entire SOI, that I would be able to put that in front of you so you can see it.
okay.
Okay, we already have the vote. You know, we could discuss it. I could certainly alter some words at that point if we felt we had to alter some words. But still, we're intact and on progress to, you took the vote,
Okay,
the SOI will be submitted on or before the 7th, and then this will print out and I'll have to get this duly executed. And then I'll have to overnight it to them so that by April 7th, they have our electronic submission and they have the follow-up of all the signed copy.
did you talk to the, Board of Selectmen's office about when we can get on their agenda?
I sent it up to Tom on
Okay.
Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
And told him that. I gave him the same,
Okay.
I wrote him a little email on the same thing I'm communicating to you right now.
So we're waiting to hear back
Okay,
from them?
yeah,
Okay.
so I'll follow up with Tom, and I'm sure he'll have me on, you know, some meeting so I can explain to the selectmen, you know, that same process, because they will have to take their vote, but then I have to have Eileen McCracken certify it,
Okay,
okay?
so we'll let everybody know.
And so long as we
when that
do
is.
all of this by, you know, end of March, I think I'll have ample time to get submit it, get it printed out, and get the official signatures and overnight it to the MSBA, or drive it there if I have to.
Okay. So, we know that the Board of Selectmen unanimously supported the 2 warrant articles for town meeting to form the building committee and the request the feasibility money as long as we get accepted into the MSBA process. And the advisory committee also unanimously supported both of those warrant articles. So that's a good thing. So makes me think that the Board of Selectmen will support the actual SOI. So we're in the right step, going in the right direction. So, John, when the document that starts with resolved, we need a motion starting with the word authorize the superintendent, so we just need to take that vote again tonight?
Well, this is the actual vote that you have to take. So,
The whole
I
thing?
think
So just, we're in a so-moved situation?
you're in a so-moved situation. Well, I didn't read the whole thing, right? I started from the middle, so
Okay.
it's up to you.
Okay. So would anyone like to make the motion? Go, Carlos? Okay,
As reads, etc.
Okay. Okay, so we're making motion to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form.
On or
as-
before.
Just so the friends at home know what we're talking about. On or before April 7th, 2017 for Foster Elementary School as written. Okay.
Yep.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Right.
Yeah.
And this goes back to when Aileen struggled with this clause last time. As I was prepping for tonight's meeting over the weekend, I'd just like to revisit the part of the first sentence, which simply says, before April 17th, for the Foster Elementary School located at 55 Donner Ave. And the concern I have is what the North Station Fires Committee got themselves into. When they went before town meeting, they were locked into one spot, one location, one building. It didn't work, and they were stuck for a year. Are we all comfortable that the way this is written, that if in fact, after examination, the existing property that's known as Foster Elementary, the 34 or 38 acres, whatever is there, if that's a no-go, are we dead in the water?
Well, aren't we applying for the project of evaluating Foster School? And so
That's right.
that if the
And it's-
determination is that we have to move it to a different location,
so
that
we're-
that's part of the whole
That'd
project?
be part of the project.
Good,
yes.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that's a good
And-
point.
And they
for
do ask for the
all our
specific
friends, yeah.
location, Ed, so that's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
why everything they do, they're asking for the specific location, because we're telling them about a building, and this is, it's no doubt, this is the building that we want, it's like
Okay, fair
you
enough.
know.
But that's a good point to raise, and for our friends at home, that identifying the exact map location is part of the MSBA requirement for that specific project, but we're gonna evaluate that project and what it needs, and it could be that one of the needs is a different location, but we still need a 4th elementary school in Hingham, so, okay.
So, Liza, just so the one alteration from what read,
Oh.
the second, third line from the
Yeah.
bottom, instead of saying city, town, regional school district, it says town of Hingham district,
Okay.
town of Hingham school district.
That'll be changed to reflect that,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So Carlos, you wanna amend your motion? As amended by John?
So, as amended,
Okay. So, anything further? No? I'll- oh,
I'd like to hear more about what Ed said about the fire station, because that's not something I'm aware of.
When they were given they had an article, town meeting, that approved a committee to explore the renovation of the North Hingham Fire Station. And early on in the exploration, they realized that they couldn't expand in that particular spot because of the subsoil. It just wasn't practical. And they couldn't go any further. And they had to come back a second time for a second town meeting and get approval to move on.
Okay, so that was a town meeting prohibition.
right.
So we just need to make sure that this
Well, thi-
is okay with MSBA. If we had to, because this is not a warrant article.
Yeah.
So,
And this is this is for a feasibility study, so we want the feasibility study for that property, right? So, you know.
I think in
Well,
hindsight.
yeah, but could we get caught up later when we decide?
Well,
But the feasibility study is based on the condition of the building.
Right.
what's that?
It's based on the condition, I mean, if Foster wasn't deteriorating, we wouldn't be in a position to be asking for this first step.
Right. So they're evaluating it, and then once they evaluate it, they determine
Yeah.
that that's not suitable. They'll say, you know, there's gotta be a different location, okay? You have to do a different location.
Well, that's all I'm concerned about. Does that
Yeah.
then negate the,
Well, there's other projects related to the Foster building, so, I mean, the other projects would be, you know, we've phrased it that way, so other projects would be evaluating sites, you know, for that, so.
I don't have the language of the warrant, I can't find, I know we've had drafts of the language of the warrant article, and I thought that there was some language at the end that sort of did a nice catch-all of
He broadened it
addressing
significantly.
this specific issue. I can't find it right now in whatever email chain it's in, but
Right.
I do remember when I brought the issue up originally, that there was some language that sort of was broad enough that if it becomes an issue that we can't build at that location, it wouldn't require another warrant article.
Linda, do you mind coming to the microphone? Sorry.
If I could find it, that would be great.
Oh,
I can tell you there is reference in the comment of the warrant article that states that there is a possibility that if it is found that the site is not acceptable, that we would move to another site. It's not in the recommended motion because that's very specific to MSBA requirements.
Okay.
But for everyone else, in the comment twice, there is language referencing that. So it's something everyone's aware of. But I think we had to be very specific with the language in the recommended motion to make sure that we were addressing the MSBA guidelines requirement for language, so.
okay, so we have motion on the table and seconded. Anything further? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have our vote
So we'll have this.
duly
and-
noted for
yeah.
March 13th.
Good, thank you.
And we will, and then as soon as we hear from the selectmen about that meeting, we'll let people know. And I would just like to put out there, and we can talk at our next meeting, we're gonna have to create a town meeting presentation when the warrant article comes up, and we need to begin socializing support for this at town meeting. So we're gonna.
And also that it will require two-thirds vote.
Yeah, it's a 2/3 vote to pass it, because it's borrowing. So we're gonna need some help from people in the committee of writing that, it'll be a PowerPoint presentation, and so anyone who can help with that project would be appreciated, yeah.
How has this been socialized in the past?
Have we sent people to go speak at PTO and other school events maybe to try to?
We have
Just
to be a little
inform the
careful
community of what we're
because
doing?
it's considered, it's campaigning for political, we have talked about it, and we talked about it here. We have to be a little careful. I know there are parents in the Foster district that are starting to get together, to start socializing it themselves. And the Friends of Hingham Public Schools is an organization that exists to do this type of advocacy, but we can certainly provide them with facts.
We can provide information, but we can't, as employees, we can't advocate for it, nor can the principal of Foster School, can provide information, but cannot campaign for or advocate for or use school paper to print on. Those kinds of things are pretty strict. So,
But the school committee members will not prevent it from advocating for, as long as we're not using public
Right,
yes,
resources.
yes,
right.
yeah,
But school employees are in a different
Correct.
category.
yeah. But we will make a presentation at town meeting because we're the sponsors of the article, so we have that time on the floor to present the article. But we should work on getting people out to town meeting and encouraging them to vote positively for this.
Yeah, I believe it's going to be an article in the Ledger this week. I didn't see anything last week. Sarah wrote a letter to the editor about Foster.
Oh, okay.
What is Sarah's last name?
Bader?
Yeah, you respond to her.
Yeah.
It should be in the paper.
Oh, okay.
Just make sure the facts are correct.
Liza, do we have to vote on the building committee? Not in terms of selecting, but The warrant article,
We did already.
did,
At the last meeting, we voted on the two articles.
oh, okay. So we were doing this one, sorry.
No, we had to re-vote this one because we had to, this was voting for what specifically is submitted to the MSBA.
Okay.
That one was for,
Authorize us to proceed with
right.
the process.
What we voted last week was what to present to town meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so 6.4, to review proposed changes to the memorandum of understanding between the Hingham Public Schools and the Hingham Police Department as recommended by the Policy Subcommittee, first reading. So, Aileen is going to take us through this.
So, what you have in your packet has been something we've been working on obviously now for several months. We've met extensively with Chief Olson, and gotten his input as well into a lot of this. There was also a discussion of this at the school council at the high school, and Carol was able to be at that meeting. I think somebody else was at that meeting, Kay, I believe it was you, who both got back to me with comments that were brought up at that meeting, some of which are included in the changes that we did ultimately make in the memorandum of understanding. The most recent thing that we've added in, which also comes up later on, the only reason I identify this separately is because it comes up later on in section 2 as well. In going through all of this process, Chief Olson brought it to our attention that we actually need to acknowledge that the school resource officers are considered authorized school personnel. That's something that's recommended. And so we are doing that both in the memorandum of understanding, but you're also gonna see tonight that we make a change in section 2.0 of the policy manual doing that, because that's an important distinction that we should be making to clarify that they are considered authorized school personnel because of the fact that they're sharing information, obviously, with the school. There's a lot of changes that took place in here. The ones that you're seeing, I don't even think, I know they do incorporate all of them. There was a lot of changing around of sections. One of the comments that had been made, and I think this was Carol's, was separating out, when we separated out mandated versus non-mandated reporting. We also reorganized everything so that the flow was better. We very specifically have added in some language about the fact that the police department, this was an issue that had been brought up, that the police department will share information with the Hingham Public Schools, subject to applicable legal restrictions, and we've added in including confidentiality and age-restricted disclosure requirements. That was an issue that a lot of people had raised. We also added in some language, because Chief Olson wanted people to know that if your child's name or if anybody's name appears in a police report, it's not always because they've done something wrong. That if there's a police report generated, sometimes it just includes the names of witnesses. But we did add it in so that everybody would know that written reports provided by the Hingham Police Department of incidents involving Hingham students may include, but is not limited to, such information as the names of individuals present at or actually involved in an incident. So it could be the names of homeowners, witnesses, vehicle operators and or owners, not necessarily meaning that it was somebody who did something wrong, but just so parents know that your child's name could, or your name could end up in a report. But that's just normal police procedure. And obviously, you know, they always list witnesses. This is something that is signed between the school and the police department, but in the past it has actually been signed off on by the chair of the Hingham School Committee. So we did leave that in. We did talk about that at one point, but we did ultimately leave that in as something that would be signed by Liza. So this is a first reading. I think that there are probably still going to be more questions, because obviously this is a document that has generated a great deal of interest and concern. I don't know if anybody has any questions already that they want to bring up tonight, or changes or suggestions. We are actually meeting again Friday morning at 10:30. I know that's very quick, but I'm actually away next week, so we were boxed in order to get a meeting in before the school committee meeting on the 28th. So, you know, on this one, I'm not quite as sure. On section 6, which we'll get to in a moment, I can't imagine that we wouldn't be able to. I think that's, I think we need to hear some feedback before we can really make that decision.
One other thing that I'd like to add on the memorandum of understanding, the original one was very geared toward the high school students, and we worked pretty hard on this of making sure that it applied to all students in the district, because there's some cases with general life issues with families that relate to elementary schools or middle school students, so this was a bit more comprehensive and broader in application. So maybe tomorrow when you're hunkered down, you can read.
It's a policy
Policy.
subcommittee meeting,
Yeah.
which I did have posted today, because I knew there might be a problem with tomorrow and maybe Wednesday, so we are gonna be all set, because it has already been posted.
And we included in the packet that your item 6.4 information, which is the chapter from that Chief Olson gave us about school resource officers and information sharing. He had given that to us, and so we thought it'd be a good thing for everyone to have access to as well, to see where
And we
some
shared
of
this
the-
with the principals as well.
Yeah.
It's good general information.
Yeah, it was really good general information. So.
Okay.
So, any other questions at the moment? So we will,
So I have
oh,
a question, I
yeah.
don't know if it's more suited to the next item, because it
Okay.
has to do with the authorized school personnel, so we'll.
Okay, let's go to the next item.
Okay.
To review proposed changes to section 2.1 of the School Committee Policy Handbook as recommended by the Policy Subcommittee, first reading.
So this is something new that has come up recently, right? The
What?
school resource, the authorized school personnel?
Well, we have always considered the resource officer as that.
Right.
For example, Tom, they all have a teaching component. Tom teaches courses actually in the school. His role isn't necessarily related to discipline. It's to sharing of information, teaching duties like joining Paula on early morning bus duty and those other kinds of things. Supervising student groups, being an advisor to 2 different student organizations. So this is how they've always functioned, but there was nothing in there that said that. And so when we read the information about the privacy and so on, it seems it's a no-brainer in terms of if, for school, authorized school personnel, to have access to anything.
So we had, town council look at this? Just in terms of.
No, we asked.
I don't know,
Brett.
something about this just feels, I'm a little uncomfortable about it, because the school resource officer really kind of has dual roles. In terms of, I mean, he's the liaison to the police, so if there's a problem over the weekend, he's the person that reports
Right,
to
and
the
that's,
school.
that's the actual flow of information that we were concerned about, of what can be shared on the police side.
Mhm.
And it turns out, if you read that document,
Yeah.
more than you would think.
The documents seem to have a lot of, this is what you should do. And I'm just wondering whether we
We have
should
to?
have independent evaluation of that's, you know, what the ramifications might be. I don't know. I just took a first reading of this myself today, and it just, there's something about it made me ask the question of whether we've had somebody who is not me,
Well,
maybe is
we
not
asked for
alien to
a legal source, and that's what, have you read the thing that's attached?
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm just asking whether we should be running it by town council. See what the ramifications might be. And maybe they're enough.
Of authorizing.
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking back to see if I could find, because Glenn had sent us a,
He gave us the
He gave us some other
email.
documents as well.
I was looking to see if he said he gave us that.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I don't think he specifically.
Karen, do you suggest that happens now before we vote, or we can vote, and then sort of like have them look at it before it's printed?
I think, well, this is I think it's a first reading, so there is time.
It is a first reading, yep.
If people, I mean, this is only myself, I mean, other people may not agree with me,
No, it's
but
not a bad
I-
idea. I mean, obviously, we wanted to make sure it's something that's done right.
So that. The information chapter came from a John Sheft, who is with Law Enforcement Dimensions LLC.
He's an attorney
And he's
that,
an attorney that Chief Olson works with. And he is an attorney that is very involved in police training and manuals. So we can definitely look into understanding better what that refers to. And in the packet, it explains of a little bit of it, but we can.
I mean, I guess just the question is if we never included it before, so has something changed recently that now it's being suggested we do? And what the ramifications of saying somebody is an authorized school personnel? This just came out of the blue to me.
No, it didn't come out of the
processing.
blue. It came up because.
I mean, it came out of the blue for this vote.
It came up because we felt, the members of the subcommittee, that we were uneasy about sharing information about minors. So
Right.
how is it the police can do that and yet they don't release arrest information about minors and their. And we asked Glenn to get us some information. He gave us several documents, including this one. So.
I took it as really more of a formalization of what we already do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But you're right, there may be ramifications we don't know
Yeah.
about.
I mean, I think that's what they were implying. They were implying that under the Code of Massachusetts regulations, in order for somebody to have access to student information, they're supposed to be an authorized school personnel person. Obviously, nobody can just walk in off the street and have access to
And we said,
students'
that's what
records.
we do anyway. And then we said, well, should we get,
And so that's
a
when he
legal-
came out with this, that just, it's to clarify their status, you know, that officers should be formally recognized as authorized school personnel. Because they are clearly accessing student information.
Right.
And they'd be useless if they couldn't.
Now, if we are authorizing only the school resource officer, would then that preclude another
Mhm.
police officer from going and accessing the student information, so it's confining it to just the school resource
I think that
officer.
that's, yeah.
And that's all we do, we don't have other people
Yeah.
that,
I mean, I think that that's clearly the way this reads, because it, you know, it says that professionals employed by the school are able to access school information without the consent of a student or a parent. So,
It's definitely worth looking at it from the other point of view, though, Carol, I agree with you of
Yeah.
understanding that,
Yeah, I think
not
you
just the
have to
police point of
understand,
view.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. We will look into that.
so who would we want to look at this?
I don't know if, that's the really good question, because I'm not sure if town council is necessarily gonna be,
The right
have any
source.
expertise or knowledge in this particular, very specific area.
Well, I think you can, I mean, we can check with the School Committee Association, you can check with the Superintendent's Association, and we can figure out some other sources for double checking what this really means, if it means,
Yeah.
if it's anything that we need to be concerned about.
So that deals with 2.1 as well then.
Yeah.
As a first reading, it was just a sentence, and it will have the same issue to be addressed as the one raised on the MOU regarding this.
Okay.
Anything else?
All right, 6.6, to review proposed changes to Section 6 of the School Committee Policy Handbook as recommended by the Policy Subcommittee, first reading. Aileen again.
So this is one that you've had for a while now. I think December was the first time we sent it around. And I believe that the last time I brought the subject up, we were making some changes in regards to health screenings and the contagious diseases sections that were all recommended by the school nurses, because we asked the school nurses after Ed came in and met with us. We realized that was probably a great idea too. And so the school nurses read those particular sections and came back with a lot of feedback. And we have made a lot of changes pursuant to their recommendations. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. The most current changes are what you're seeing, I think, in, well, there's so many colors on this now, I apologize. You've got red, you've got green, you've got multiple shades of red. That just shows you how much we have worked on this particular section.
So I have a couple of comments. When we mentioned, I saw that there was a correction with not saying guardian, but legal guardian. And there's other areas where that appears where it should probably be corrected, it should say legal guardian. I assume that's what we want throughout the entire policy?
Yep.
So, for example, under 6.7, signed by a parent or guardian, that should probably read legal guardian. And then I'm wondering, then I saw when I was continuing to read, for example, under 6.10, we mentioned parent, contact a parent, but we don't mention legal guardian. So I'm wondering, we need to be consistent. Every time we mention the word parent, we should probably mention the word legal guardian. And this is probably not just for 6.1, or for each of those paragraphs. I'm sure it's probably through the entire handbook that we'd have to go through and make those edits. That was the first thing that I noticed.
Good catch.
Second thing with the age requirements, and this is more of just curiosity,
Which section is it?
6.2.
Okay, yep.
Where we define that a child has to be 5 years old before August 31st and 6 years old on or before August 31st to enter grade 1. There's no mention really, though, about exceptions to the rule when a parent holds a child back, and I was wondering if we need to address that.
They would be that old
It
Well, they might
doesn't-
be older, actually.
Right.
Or,
But that's the
Right.
minimum.
okay,
That's
so,
implied to be the minimum, I guess, suppose we could clarify that. It could be at least, add at least in there.
yeah, it's not mentioned, but I know it's common practice, so we just aren't addressing it here in this policy. And so I just thought maybe this is the time to, I don't know if there's any issues, maybe it doesn't need to even be addressed or mentioned.
Not sure what the issue is.
She's talking about
So-
parents who keep kids back
Yeah,
and then
but this
send them to
doesn't
school.
talk- If a child is
later.
held back,
They're older.
But she
Oh,
just
like
means
for,
it-
even for kindergarten, if they hold their,
Yeah.
are we going to?
It's not necessarily entering grade 1, it may still be in kindergarten.
She means like if you read it literally, it would mean you have to be 5 to enter kindergarten, you have to be 6 to enter first grade.
well,
You
the
can't be
kindergarten
six to
one
enter kindergarten.
You can't be-
does say,
You can't.
5 or more.
I guess you could be 6 and still be in kindergarten. It
Yeah.
does not mean that you're automatically in grade 1. It's obviously with consulting the parents. So I'm just wondering if this needs to somehow be brought into the wording. Because a child could be 6 and stay in
Just
kindergarten.
adding like at least in there?
yeah, but you have to be,
That's the law.
So
So you're required to register for school the September in which the year you turn 6. That's the regulation. I mean, that's law. I mean, this is talking about compulsory age of attendance, right? And that's the way that it's actually
Yes, it
worded.
is,
That's
yeah.
why it's kindergarten and 5, because you must register in school the September of the year in which you turn 6.
So this is really more about just kindergarten, because the other one's the law.
well,
Right?
But the kindergarten 5 is that's our decision.
The
5 as of
kindergarten
September
date,
1st.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
But that first sentence is accurate.
The first sentence
first
is.
sentence is-
I think
is
she's
the law.
talking more about the last sentence of the
Yes,
first
correct.
paragraph, Jamie.
Mhm.
I'm sorry to get that far.
Because it says it is the policy of the Hingham School Committee.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I just wanted to, I don't know, just was something that kind of came to my mind when I was reading it.
So you're asking, Kay, about if there is sort of like a waiver to the age entry requirement? No,
No,
I'm
I think she's
not
saying
clear on the
if they-
question.
If somebody's held back, then somebody in kindergarten could be 6
yes.
And it's
Correct.
not necessarily entering grade 1.
and could be entering kindergarten. And
Right.
does this language address that particular situation?
No, because this is
Trying to
registration.
repeating.
We
Not
have not,
repeating.
okay, we have not had that discussion.
Okay, yeah, well, okay.
So, this exercise was, updating the policies based on practices that we have been ongoing and law changes, basically. We have not gotten into lengthy discussions of changing a practice. So,
She's not saying changing, she's just talking about
Updating.
clarifying what's in there. Because what
I'm
she's
gonna-
talking
No,
about
well,
already happens.
I think
Yeah.
she's talking about that, I
We
believe
don't understand the
Duxbury.
question.
Yeah.
What?
We don't understand the question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, there
Yeah,
are
but I-
towns that,
But we've never talked about
Yeah.
that
Okay,
seriously.
so it was
as a
just a
town.
thought that came to my mind when I
Yeah.
was reading through this. It didn't seem to be addressed, and I thought, well, this is the time, since we're working on the policy, to maybe ask ourselves the question.
right,
Should
yes,
we,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a different.
should we talk about?
should we
yeah.
talk about how we are wording our
Yeah.
policies, because this is something that just came to my mind when reading.
Yeah.
If it doesn't seem to be an issue, then I have no problem not changing it, but I'm just kind of asking my colleagues
Right.
tonight, what are your thoughts on that?
Because it is practice.
It
People
is
do
common
Oh,
practice.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people do it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So we're not talking about changing it, we're just talking about clarifying that if you do that, you're not flouting the policy.
But if somebody holds out at kindergarten
Right.
and enrolls when they're 6, they get placed in the age appropriate into
No.
the first grade, don't
No.
You
they?
can hold your kid
That's what it is.
and put him in kindergarten.
Oh.
and
Right.
B6.
Yeah.
And
That's,
there are-
That's what was confusing.
There are
but-
towns that have had.
New
We,
districts.
we haven't, but there are towns
Yeah,
that have had a
right.
huge problem with
Mhm.
that
I'm sure.
happening, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but
Mhm.
the general consensus sometimes is it's to give your kids an advantage.
Mhm.
In the long term, they'll be
I
bigger for
understand.
sports when they get to high school.
The
They'll
committee that I
be
can't work
smarter
with.
and
Well, it's
more
also
advanced in
emotionally
class.
ready.
They
Are
might, but
yeah.
there's a whole
don't.
concern around
Yeah.
the issue
I understand
because
better
of
now.
those
Now I
kinds of
understand your
topics.
question.
Jamie's has a different paradigm
Took
that
me
he's
a minute.
working off
Yeah,
of,
it took me a
yes.
minute. Sorry.
Um,
I'm like, but it's the law. I get it.
Yeah.
I get what you're
I'm
saying.
talking more about our policy.
I got you.
Yes.
Not so much the law.
Yes. All right.
So,
That did not enter our mind because it hadn't been brought up before. So,
We've talked about it before, internally, because a number of other communities have gone that route and simply say, you can't hold up. They go when they're supposed to go. But we felt if we had that, there would be a lot of legitimate requests for waivers. We don't give any waivers with it now of going to kindergarten when you're 5, or if you want to go when you're 6. We have looked the other way. But we don't give any waivers to being age 5 for kindergarten. That's an absolute. But I think that as we chatted internally, we thought if we said you have to go when you're 5 and you can't go when you're 6, and there are a lot of good reasons for doing that, we would be having people requesting all kinds of waivers based upon the assessment of a preschool person who might say this child is not ready for kindergarten to the parent, or the parent himself or herself, who may legitimately feel that the child is not ready. And so the idea of having a policy that you would have to waive a lot kind of weighed out over the feeling that sometimes parents do make judgments about going to kindergarten at 6 for the wrong reasons, but that there are some legitimate reasons. So that was our thinking, but we never brought it up as a formal topic to study, or we never suggested to the school committee that they should look at it, or any of those things.
Well, in
But-
fact, we had the reverse problem with the language that we added
Yes.
in 15 of people that were coming from a private kindergarten setting or from another state that may have a different age requirement, where they wanted to get into first grade earlier.
yeah.
So that's the language
why
of
they
the
added-
second paragraph.
And the only
Which-
thing we've ever waived there, in terms of entering first grade before 6, is if a family comes from another state where the starting age is different, that we wouldn't ask a child who'd already gone to kindergarten to repeat kindergarten just to be in first grade by grade 1. That's the only exception we made to the age 5. And then we modified the entry age of 6 to what's there currently 2 years ago.
Was.
When
Yeah,
we had
yeah,
a parent
yes,
whose
yeah.
child was, with children, they were twins that were born.
Born on September 1st, right?
September,
So one day.
no, they were born on August 31st.
One was
And they-
31st.
One was the 31st, one was the 1st. I think that was the problem. Yeah.
They were twins anyway. So we did modify the entry by grade 1, but the teachers particularly have always felt strongly about entry at age 5. And so we haven't waived that unless it's that by no fault of their own, they moved here from another state where they'd already gone to kindergarten.
Right.
But still weren't 6.
so if there's no issues,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
fine with leaving it the way it is, but I just kind of wanted to put it out there.
Yep.
Yep.
No, that's fair.
So that was one thing that I
Okay.
had noticed. The other was towards the end, we speak about charter schools. But there's no mention of when there's a transfer of a student from another school outside of the Hingham Public School District. So it could be
Which section?
Section?
6.31.
So I'm just wondering why charter schools are chosen and not maybe another private school or another public school.
Probably state law
That
requires
was
us
a
to
new,
have
a
this
brand new
policy.
state law.
Okay.
It came along maybe 2 years ago, and it sticks out like, what's this about? And why is it only about charters? Well, it came about as a law that was motivated by some charter school folks, presumably because there were some. Do you know what that is?
I can't read that fine.
No, I thought you might know about this. When children return back to the public schools from a charter school, you know, there's this talk about what we have to do for them. Came along about 2 years ago, and so all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in this long section of all kinds of other things that seem logical and related, this didn't seem logical to us, but it was the law, and we had to put it into the handbook, so, I mean,
It's about determining the student's grade level placement when they come back from a charter school, and also that they have to be subjected to the same graduation requirements, and, but they can have certain graduation requirements. Oh, it says they can have certain graduation requirements waived and may make up certain graduation requirements, so it's a whole section about how a charter school student coming back to the public school will get fit back into the public
The
school.
only sort of related law I know is that when a student gets accepted to a charter school, they apply for a grade, you have to place them in the appropriate grade if they get in, no matter if it was the grade they applied for or not. So they applied for 9th grade, and you get them there, and it turns out that they haven't passed 8th grade. Maybe it was at the, and that was a recent law that they instituted about 3 years ago. What I think they're worried about is charter schools culling students and picking students. That's my guess. There was a pushback on charter schools about what was happening.
This seems to go in the other
It's the
direction, though.
opposite.
This
Yeah.
seems
It's the
to
opposite.
suggest that
Coming from a
they
charter.
want to prevent public schools from somehow disadvantaging kids coming from charter schools by saying, well, you don't meet the requirements.
2 years ago, it's at the same time they made.
No, this
the
is
budget.
5
This
years
is
ago,
5 years
actually.
ago.
No, 2010.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
Do we know the law? I mean, maybe we should
It's,
at least
Well,
reference
Yeah,
it,
is
so
it
that.
is
We
right
do,
there.
it is referenced
Yeah.
at the end.
so that chapter 12, section 11 of the Mass Legislature Act. of
We were just
2010.
looking at the first section, but if you read down below, it does reference it.
I don't know if it is an MGL. They probably, or not, 'cause that's why it says Massachusetts
Yeah.
Legislature
Legislative
Acts.
acts, yeah.
Oh, don't, okay.
I'll
the
just
chapter
Google
12,
it
section
when I
11.
can, I'll just Google that particular section just to.
So Kay, usually with these policy sections,
Mhm.
the last couple of policies are added because of state law, because
Okay.
in the past, like 5 to 10 years, the legislature says you have to have a policy about this. So we add them to the end of the section.
Because again, reading it, you kind of say, well, what happens if my kid's coming from
A private school.
a private
Right,
school
yeah.
or another,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, Norwell
Yeah, it
Public
doesn't
School,
make
and
any
it's not a
particular
charter
sense.
school, you're looking for the policy and you think it's missing.
No news is good news.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I guess we don't really have a need for having a policy
Okay,
about.
that's fine, it's just.
I don't
We don't have a need
think,
for this
I'm
policy,
asking,
no.
okay.
But apparently somebody had an unfortunate experience where perhaps they felt they were not treated the same as
Yeah.
another private school. And also here, the charter school is a public school, so.
No, I understand, but it was just when I was reading it, kind of, those were the questions coming to my mind.
Is with the achievement gap.
And there's only one sentence that I kind of had to read a couple of times to understand it, and I don't know if you want to take a look at it. It's under 6.6 with the health screenings.
It's the Christmas
Okay.
Mhm.
colors.
Which sentence is
one?
it?
So where it says guidelines are outlined under procedure 6.6B and include provisions for parents to opt out of screening by a written request to the school nurse. Shouldn't it say and or receiving information about their children? And then it has the by written by a school nurse twice, so I was just wondering if we can just like rewrite that sentence.
Yeah, I could, I don't know if that's,
If I'm understanding, you can opt out of the screening, and then are you automatically opted out of receiving information, or do you have to opt out of both? So you can opt out of this, then if you opt out of the screening, obviously there's no information.
I think it's, because it's referring back to the procedures, guidelines are outlined under procedure 6.B and include provisions for parents to opt, there maybe should be a colon there, provisions for parents to opt out of the screening by a written request to the school nurse, and for parents to receive information about their children by written request to the school nurse. So we can clean that up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is odd sounding.
It is. Fortunately, that language was already there before. We didn't draft that confusing language. We just didn't fix it, but we will.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was it for my
Great,
review.
thank you. Okay, so,
We should say about this section that Ed was very helpful in identifying some things we needed to look further into in all of these health pieces. And we then had the nurses in a meeting read through all of it to make it more consistent and to help us with, I think we reordered some things, but this section's been reviewed by all of the nurses.
now, 6.7. To receive the superintendent's recommendation for the Plymouth River School Principalship.
Well, I put information in your packet this morning, and we will send out this information tonight after the meeting.
First thing in the
Or
morning.
first thing in the morning.
It's all cheap.
right.
Well, the staff notification will go out the minute you take the vote. And then the parent notification will go out. It's queued to go out first thing in the morning through X2.
And so it is my pleasure to recommend to you Melissa Smith, who's been the assistant principal at Plymouth River for 5 years now, and came with a lot of experience, particularly in Randolph, both at the teacher level and teaching students with special needs and co-teaching model, which is a wonderful attribute that she brings, and also has had experience in both building administration and central office, and like-minded souls, and she was a director of math at one point as well. We thought that in chatting about that at this office, so we're losing Chuck, but we're maintaining and keeping another STEM person at Plymouth River, so that will keep that kind of tradition going on. But we started with 16 applications, started back in November or October, and it even have been when we first posted for the position, and have done all the typical steps, a first interview, a second interview, site visits to Plymouth River to see Melissa, and to the school of the other finalist, and then a time when part of the screening committee, number of members, went just last week to Plymouth River, and also to the other candidate school. And the consensus, using all of those steps, was that Melissa is the superior candidate, and she's the person that we want there. Very positive feedback from the people that we talked with last week. Jamie did some, what do we call them, debriefing kinds of sessions in terms of the team reactions from all of the different kinds of visits, and was very, very positive. And I met with Melissa briefly on one occasion. We're due to meet again on Wednesday to talk about contract, but I am comfortable that we looked at some sample language, and we looked at the parameters of salaries that that we can come to agreement on the contracts. And so we wanted you to know as soon as possible, because an awful lot of other people are dying to know.
They really are. They
And we
really,
said
really
we
are.
need to make this announcement first to the school committee. And so tonight is it. I had whispered in the ear of the Ledger reporter that he could get 2 stories out of one. He came tonight about the budget, but he declined, I guess, to go and write his other story. But really pleased, and I think people will be not only happy with the skills that Melissa brings and the ideas that she brings. You know, we always ask candidates, what are your ideas? What are some of the things that you want to see put in place? And we were, the 4 of us who had the second interview, were really impressed with the thought she'd given to the things that are important to continue, but the things that she uniquely would like to do, and in some cases was going to take on even if she weren't successful in this role. But so I'm happy. I hope you are all happy as well, and we will. I'm confident be able to come up with a salary agreement that is within the budget, as well as being what I think is the right number.
Well, yay. Well, congratulations, Melissa. And I myself remember when you came to the district, we get the best of both worlds. We get somebody from out of the district bringing new ideas, but who's been in our district long enough that knows us well. But I remember when you joined us, and you were an assistant principal at both East and Plymouth River. So I was an East parent, and from day one, you brightened up the place, and everyone knew you, and you knew the kids in like 2 weeks. You knew every single kid's name in that school. I was amazed. And then I know as a school committee member, when Plymouth River went from a level 2 school to a level 1 school, you were instrumental in making that all happen as well. And so we're really excited to promote you and share your vision and get behind you and the next generation of Plymouth River. So welcome in your new role. We're excited. No, we'll vote the contract, right?
Yeah, we'll vote the contract. But
So, anyone else?
Well, welcome. I've had the opportunity to be on the Plymouth River Council this year. This is my first year, and I've enjoyed it. It's a very good group, and you know who was the chair of more cases than the co-chair.
Speaking of which, so what's the plan for vice?
well, that will be Melissa's selection. We talked about a bit about that. We'll advertise both internally and externally, and we'll do that right away. And that would be her selection. Okay. So, and typically when
Good luck.
Typically when principals are appointing, sometimes teachers, but sometimes other people in their buildings that have a broader role than one classroom, will involve other members of the staff in doing some screening and interviewing. So we anticipate that will happen.
Great. Carlos?
Melissa, once again, congratulations. And it's awesome. My 2 sons went through Plymouth River, and obviously, we are going to miss Dr. Comier. It's awesome to see that he mentors someone that is doing a very good job. So I'm sure, we're in good hands with you. So congratulations and good luck.
Okay.
And we kept him in suspense. He was away last week, so he wasn't around during the visit to the building, and so Melissa had to get permission to tell him from afar, because we wanted to try to keep it contained until today.
Congratulations.
And bonus, you get the day off on your first day of the
Don't expect that off.
Yeah. One time. Yeah, I think that, is that a record?
Yes.
Of it, the earliest you've ever
In the
called?
olden days.
The olden days.
In the olden
not.
days, I would have waited till the morning. In fact, in almost
Yeah.
every case, the right thing to do is to wait till the morning. But we have a constituency that doesn't like that, so.
I think the governor scooped you.
Yeah, but he didn't, yeah. Well, as the day
town
wore
hall
on,
closed.
as the day wore on and the snow totals went down to,
I
you
know,
know,
Yeah.
like
6
6
to
inches
12.
now.
Yeah.
And then if the storm moves a little bit more in one direction, that's what I mean. Not, I would never have school on a day that was predicted, but I would want to be able to wait till the morning and hear the most recent prediction.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I'm not into doing risky things for anyone, particularly kids and safety, but it's just a matter of the when that I struggle with now.
So we won't expect it happening again at that time.
Well,
Well, we don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
When the email went out about town hall being closed tomorrow at about 3 o'clock, I think it was pretty much a done
we
deal.
got the message at 8 a.m. about town hall.
Okay.
We're more rugged.
Yeah. Okay, 6.8, to discuss a recommended change to the middle school baseball softball field as proposed by the Long Range Planning Subcommittee and act as appropriate. So Ed, you've been
I'll give
busy.
you the Cliff Notes version. Just about a year ago, last spring, Aprilish, we were contacted by Scott Sear, the name that I alluded to earlier, about could some changes be made to the ball field at the middle school. John, myself, Scott, Derek, and Ray joined us. We walked the field. At that time, we had some other issues besides talking about the baseball, the ball field, because the fields were not up to snuff. There was some concerns there. That's been resolved. We did that. I brought the recommendation, the request from the baseball folks into the long-range planning this past fall, and we discussed it, talked about it. The suggestion was made, we do a little bit of homework, and do we want to get the girls, or I should say softball, involved as well? I'm going to give you fractions. The numerator is in this case is the smaller number. When I say a fraction, the numerator is the distance from the rubber to home plate, and the denominator is the distance from home plate to first or third base. Now the background is the MSBA, and talked to Mary Mahoney and got the minutes from the Hingham School Middle School Building Committee from September 3rd of 2014. And I'll simply read you the sentence because I think it answers everybody's question. Ray Estes reported on correspondence received from Margaret Conity, our athletic director from the Hingham Public Schools, and youth sports groups recommending a change to the contract specified for the baseball field. The MSBA, in their infinite wisdom, dictated a ball field at 60-80. And the consensus of the opinion at that time was to build it at 50-70. 50 feet from the pitching rubber to home plate and 70 at first base and third base. And in fact, that was adopted. The reason being that the president of the Hingham Hall, Babe Ruth, spoke of the benefits of changing the field, and there was discussion concerning the possibility of using this field at a 60-80. Okay. Now we fast forward to, you have copies, and I see one up on the board, of the recommendations that have come forth with. And in a nutshell, what the Long Range Planning Committee is recommending is to allow the softball people and the baseball people to change some of the distances. And the way it would be accomplished is at no expense to the school or the school committee, a portable mound that would, you've got the benches in front of you, a portable pitching mound that would change for the portable mound for the Little League Baseball would be to change the 50 to 46 feet. And no mound that would allow, it would just, the softball would just move to 43 feet and provide removable, magnetically held in place bases that would be moved from the 70 to 60. The two groups, the Little League Baseball and the softball parents, will be purchasing a portable mound. The bases, both the magnets that are in ground or below grade, as well as a storage box to store this material in place at their expense. There were some requests to maybe do some field changes, and the committee voted that we're going to just leave it the way it is for a year to see how well it goes. I was asked to contact the principal at the middle school, Derek Smith, and I spoke with Derek and Brian Patterson, the gym teacher, and they're both on board. They're both on board with this. So the Scott Sear is the president of the Hingham Little League, and we met with Mark Wilkin, who's the director of fields for the Hingham girls softball. The president of the Hingham girls softball, Tammy Hayes, who I've not met, but I talked with several times, was just out of town for the meeting. So this doesn't rise to the level of requiring a vote, but was asked just to get information and provide it to the group for questions and approval. John, what would you like to add?
Yeah, no, and I would just add that, you know, it said that the combination of, I think, Little League and Gals will actually fund the bases and the box and the portable mound that gets on the field. So, you know, that is a gift, and, you know, the committee may want to acknowledge the gift. It's of a level that it could be accepted by Dot and I, as opposed to having a formal acceptance by the school committee, but an acknowledgement would be good. And, you know, I think that we talked about the first year. For this first year, let's not cut into the field. Let's see how the use as a 50-70 develops, because that's the way, you know, the building committee had initially built the field. And it was sort of like odd where it's never been put in service that we would be changing the format already. So I think this gives us the best of both worlds, where the actual field stays intact as is, and then it gives the youth groups the opportunity to play on the field. I mean, we even learned at that meeting too that, you know, for the gals softball, a softball field's not supposed to have grass.
Right.
So we weren't going to take the grass up. So, but, you know, certainly would be usable for the younger age groups.
Sure.
So this will be a you know, a good year, and I think putting those temporary bases in makes a lot of sense, and having the portable mound, that makes sense as well. And the field's looking pretty good. It's in pretty good shape, and we're getting ready to schedule. And we also talked with the Little League and Gals, and I said, you need to work out your scheduling. You know, we don't want to have fights on the scheduling. And then I asked them to just, you know, book the place when you really need it, so that it could be available to others, so we can see if use as a 50-70 does develop somehow.
And, you know, I think it was great that we sort of like, you know, brought the two representatives of the girls and boys together, and it was a mutual agreeable solution there, so that is a good thing.
Indeed it was, and thank you, Carlos. I was remiss that I mentioned that one of the planning meetings in the fall, it was Dr. Gallo that made the suggestion that we get the softball players involved, and it was a good catch. I'm glad we did it. You're absolutely right.
So I just have one question.
Sure.
I'm just curious, so who was it designed to be used by, if it's?
Well, originally, MSBA guidelines, when that building was built, considering the age of the kids that was there, was to make it a Babe Ruth kind of a field. But we don't have that much need, and we do have need for youth, particularly girls. There's a shortage in this town for the younger girls. There is for boys too, in that we have lots and lots of youth baseball, but we really need to make that a multi-use thing, and so at the level that was discussed when the field was being discussed, which was later in the process, wasn't discussed early on, later in the process. So the building committee went back and looked at that issue and then specified that it be a field that could be converted or convertible in some way to a field that could be used by both. And I had remembered that discussion.
So in some other history on that too, Aileen, is that, I coached Little League at one point, and I know that during that period of time, there was some coaches on board that were looking to actually form a pony league, which would be that intermediate, because the kids, when they come out from Little League, and go right to that 60-80 field, it's just like so big for them, and I think the baseball people were thinking that it's discouraging the kids because they get in and they hit their home runs and it's just going to shortstop or so. But but if that 13 age group, that first one, if they could get a pony league inserted in there, then that would give them another year to develop. And I think that through the process of the open meeting with the SBC, that got sold, that concept got sold, and the field did get modified. So, today, there's AAU that uses the 50-70 as well. So, maybe Pony League will, grow some point in Hingham.
Well, it
to
used to
interest
be a
that
thing.
young.
I didn't even know it had gone
Yeah.
away until we were having the
Yeah.
discussion of this field.
Well,
It
it-
used to be Pony League as well as Little League.
And that's right where the middle school kids are.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that's what was behind it, so.
Is that area, those fields, I can quickly remind you, there are two playing fields there, the upper field, and there's a taper, and then there's a lower field. They're in terrific shape. They, compared to a year ago, holy moly. I've
Yeah, Doug
been over
did a
there
good
several
job.
times. I live right around the corner. That ball field that we're talking about is gonna be terrific, because there's irrigation there. There's irrigation in the infield, let alone the outfield. And once that gets mature, and we use our new grooming tool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, all
It's
that
gonna be
goes to Doug
terrific.
and Katie. They've really, in the back of the fall, we said we gotta get this cleaned up and worked, and, they've grabbed the contractors and consulted with the South Shore Country Club and any other people in the town, and the town has helped in the mowing, because we had the grass growing. We have done overseeding, dethatching. These were all the recommendations that we got from the building committee. They got a credit at the end for work that hadn't been done on the field. So, those recommendations, we did follow through with those, and we did all that work in the fall. And, and we're going to, we have a program that will be set up actually on April 14th, Good Friday. They're gonna do the high school and the middle school fields with, a treatment, so that we can, do good proper maintenance with them. So, knock on wood, I think we'll have some nice looking fields.
And the building committee prudently purchased screening, because it wasn't until the building was built and all that glass, particularly in the area of the library, became apparent when the field began to grow in and you knew where it is, and you look from the field to all that glass.
And it looked pretty close.
It's pretty close. So the building committee, they're very, very careful with the town's money, and so they didn't approve a lot of things that weren't specifically in the original design, but this was one that they did approve. That certainly was the right thing to do.
Well, the screen is gonna protect the windows,
Mhm.
but it's also gonna save the ball budget when there's foul balls
Go
over.
into the library.
No, going to left field or over third base, into the woods.
Balls of glass windows, they don't.
Yeah.
Go
it's,
together too well, so that was a good thought.
Especially that older age group,
Yeah.
because you'll get a right-handed batter there, and they get a fast pitch, and zoom, you can get a line drive heading right over to that building. So it's only 30 feet. You'll still get pop-ups, and it will hit brick, but hopefully the impact on the windows won't be major.
Yes.
Okay. Ed, do you want a motion to accept the gift, or?
I would make a
do you-
motion that we accept this gift from the, make a motion that we accept the gift of a portable pitcher's mound, removable magnetic bases, and a storage box on behalf of from the Hingham Little League and the girls softball.
Have a second?
Second.
Girls
Second?
softball.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
I'll give Scott a buzz tomorrow. He's been waiting to make the purchases before we.
Now you got two things to talk to him about.
And it is Brian Patterson, not Brad Patterson. That is the gym teacher that you talked
What'd I say?
to. You said Brad Patterson.
It's not our
That's Brad.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, I meant
Mr.
to-
Patterson,
He
yeah.
meant Brian Patterson.
Big guy. I honestly,
guy,
yeah,
Brian
yeah, as soon as I met him.
Video.
The guy was asked to.
Yeah. All right, 6.9, to hear an update on plans for MCAS 2.0, spring 2017 testing.
Well, we've had, a number of questions, as you can imagine, particularly from parents and parents of fourth graders and not as much eighth graders, but we just want you to be aware of all that we've done to be ready for this new 2.0, particularly around readiness for the online testing at 4 and 8. And Jamie's met numerous times with the 4 elementary specialists, with the middle school staff, because grade 8, of course, would be tested there. And I wanted to share with you what our folks have been doing to get ready and to reassure everyone that we think we're there.
We are there. The kids are ready. They will do great. Beginning in September, the instructional technology teachers unpacked the technology specs of the assessment and ensured that those skills are being practiced on a weekly basis with all of the sections in fourth grade. At the middle school, rather, in the 8th grade, where they've been working with their Chromebooks over a number of years, we felt more confident, right, that those kids would have those computer skills in order to navigate the test-nav environment. We were less confident with 4th grade. So starting in September, they began working with both 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, but really focusing the efforts on 4th grade. Just a few weeks ago, they began the exposure to the online test environment, where the kids were logged in. They were able to point and click and expand and collapse windows, scroll, looking at how the different tool bars function. And we have a big dress rehearsal ready, and I'm drawing a blank on the date.
20th.
On Monday, where all 4 schools and the middle school will actually go live with practice tests at the same time to actually do a dry run of our infrastructure to make sure that we're ready to go. We have enough ports in place and technology connections. The infrastructure of the test on our side, the names have been entered, the accommodations are in, we are ready to roll. And so the teacher training has also gone hand in hand. So not only sort of all the test administrators have received training on navigating the test environment, starting and stopping sessions and sections, because particularly the online is new for everyone, right? So we've all given MCAS before, but giving it online is a little bit of a different interface and a couple little different things that you have to manage. And that faculties have been trained across all 4 elementary schools. Actually, Melissa was instrumental in developing the training materials and rolling them out to all 5 schools. And that's one of the benefit of having our 4th and 8th grade going, is we've been collaborating. And so as materials have been developed in one school, they've been actually shared out to all others, and all the teachers and the students are hearing similar messages across the entire district about the testing environment. I mean, if you have more specific questions, I can answer them, but I wanted to give you sort of a broad overview that there has been training ongoing for students since September. The teacher training has been in the last month or two. Although the 4th grade teachers in all 4 buildings actually went in and actually took some of the practice tests from Park. So this is sort of in the fall before the MCAS 2.0 practice tests were released, just so they could get a sense of sort of what the students would be experiencing in the new structure. But we have all confidence that we are ready to go and that our students will do well.
There was also an email sent out to middle school parents regarding the Chromebooks, make sure that
They're charged.
They're
Charged.
charged.
Yes.
They bring them on Monday because I guess the test has to be taken on that Chromebook.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, and that's the Monday dress rehearsal. So in all
also the
grades.
second one, but it was good.
Great. But yeah, that's the Monday, our big dress rehearsal across all 5 schools. And all testing at the same time to make sure that our system can sort of manage.
Yeah, that was another concern that a parent, actually this morning, I had all-town PTO and said, well, have you tested all the schools simultaneously to know whether or not we have the capacity to have a whole school of kids? It's not a whole school, it's a grade, but nevertheless, a lot of kids simultaneously online. And, yeah, and we're having a practice on Monday. And so-
And I will, without getting into detail that can get a little laborious, long story short, we actually don't have, so let's say there's 30 sort of stations in a computer lab testing. All 30 actually don't go up to the test itself. There's what's called proctor caching, so each building has its own proctor cache set up. That is the one terminal that actually connects through the internet to the test server and pulls the test down and then pushes it out to the terminals it's connected to. That's if we ever lost connectivity, lost power, it's actually stored on the local machines, and one machine actually has the interface up to the network.
And that's,
so we're not draining network resources.
that's new since the piloting that we did 2 or 3 years ago in the first year of online testing, where that was a significant issue because we were pulling the tests from the cloud, and we weren't. We had paper tests that practice here, but those were, and if there were network issues somewhere else, then
It would
we
impact
really
everything.
were. So they came up with the wise idea of loaning us the test. I don't, how long do we have access to it? Somebody asked that this morning too.
How long do you have access to what?
Does it reside or can it reside on our service?
On Monday?
The actual test.
Oh, it's the practice test.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
sorry.
when the actual test is,
It actually doesn't reside on our server. It resides on the proctor cache.
well,
It's-
that's what,
it's an
yeah,
ins-
right.
yeah.
But that's what I mean. How long do we have access to that?
1 day, 5 days,
For
Just
the
forever.
90-minute session that it's open.
That's-
Just the session?
Oh.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
We can't go back and look at it. Yeah.
How do
So
you
we have
have-
to have them ready at 9 AM? Like, that's when it opens? Or do we have 90 minutes whenever we want the 90 minutes?
I was just saying the 90-minute
Okay.
test session. And so
Okay.
whenever the session supervisor hits start, it begins.
So whenever they hit start.
Yep.
Now, is there any plan to have some tech support in place? Like, I would like to suggest.
Absolutely. We're on
bring
it.
Bring the
Yes.
tech squad.
Yeah.
High school tech squad.
One for building, and actually the high school, Joe, they're all coming down to be there.
Because the high school isn't testing electronics.
Yeah. The kids are in great hands, and they're going to do great. And they have been really enjoying. If you actually see them in there, they've really been enjoying it. It hasn't been a really arduous task for them. It's engaging.
And this actually started last year, because last year, the elementary folks for grade 3 students were working on the keyboard skills.
Well, they're used to using keyboards, that's
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, they don't always use them with the right
No, no,
fingers,
no,
but
but-
as long as- neither do I, so as long as they're reasonable. But it is something that parents had been concerned about,
Yeah.
the keyboard and piece.
And then when's the first real test? April?
I think it is too. I think elementary goes first, so I think you're at first, April 3rd.
Great.
Good.
I won't say it's exciting, but
It is.
it's new.
Can be.
That's right.
So,
Well, it's nice to roll it out with only 2 grades.
Yes.
You know, because it would have been much more overwhelming next year, will be much more
Yeah.
overwhelming next year.
and next year will be,
Everybody,
Fifth. Oh,
presumably,
it'll be
unless you
everybody?
can make
Oh.
a case for, well, not high school.
right,
Not high school, but 3 through 8, unless, I'm sure there'll be some ability to make a case for, we don't have the technology, but.
6.10, to receive notification of the late-night field trip of grades 7 and 8 students to New York City to see a Broadway show on May 20th, 2017.
We have done this trip before, but it is relatively new at this grade level.
Middle school. On Monday. It is.
Yeah, I think it would, one thing on this, I know it's new, and with the Washington DC trip, I think it would behoove us to look at what are the overall offerings of all the trips per grade. Because this one seemed a little pricey to me at $200 and coming right off of the DC trip, and then there's the Quebec trip, and I think we need to be sensitive to what we're offering and the pricing of things so that families can know what they're taking advantage of or what's the right thing for them. And
Some of these are probably though more geared towards certain groups of people, like the Quebec trip
Oh.
is for kids that are taking French, and
Right.
this is for the drama club kids that are going that may not be doing some of those other trips.
I understand that, but these are
So you're
hundreds
saying
of
to
dollar
announce
trips
them
as opposed
in
to
more in advance
a
so people-
$25 trip.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be sensitive to the price tag of
Right, but
these.
what I'm saying is, do you think, are you suggesting that if we notified people earlier about what was going to be out there,
Yeah.
that would be better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, even at the beginning of the school year, that we're presenting to parents, here, this
Here are
is
the
the whole
options.
year, this is what's out there, then they could plan for the
Right.
year if they want.
Do they
to
not?
do-
I mean, so I'm just thinking back, this trip didn't exist when my kids were at the middle school, but they typically, I know, like for the high school, when they do their New York trip, they tell the parents in September, they kind of give them a timeline and say, this is, at the end of the year, we'll be doing this trip. I don't know if they do that. I would imagine Mo does a similar thing, but I wonder, we don't know.
Well,
whether-
most of them involve a fundraising component, so they do get a lot of notice, but I think what Liza is thinking about more is just if you see all that will
Right.
be there,
Yeah.
that individually notifying the
Right.
different groups is different from saying to the grade level, these are all the things that are gonna be coming up that might be significant, so that you can,
Well, it
Right.
is. It's a way for families
Yeah.
who can't send their kids on everything, to
Right.
have a
Yeah,
conversation with
say
their
which-
child and
yeah.
say,
Yeah.
What do you
you
want?
have
Yeah.
to pick and
Right.
prioritize, and not have it be a last minute emotional decision.
Eighth grade,
For the French students, it's offered, and that's, yeah.
that's been around a long, long
Yeah.
time.
Kids
And
love
this
it.
drama
Yeah,
thing,
that's-
a little less time, but it's 7th and 8th grade, so.
Yeah.
I think this started when Mr. Landis arrived there.
Could
And
have
I think he and Mo Fish kind of combined forces to do this. And kind of, I think, echoing off what was happening at the high school.
Yeah,
with
but
their-
just a lesser scope,
but
one
a
play
smaller,
and
one day in and out, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then the band goes to the graded, Six Flags and.
Right.
Yeah, so we can think that through a little bit, that'd be
Mhm,
helpful.
okay.
Okay, other item, 48-hour items, do you have anything?
We do have one.
You do.
Officially, we have one.
Oh.
Snow day.
I already made that, I sent that out at 6 o'clock.
The funny thing is, the last time we met, that
Yeah.
Monday, right,
I know.
was a day off, right? Was a school day off, right? Yeah. Because I had parents calling me over the weekend to find out if we're going to cancel Monday morning.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's right.
So anyway, yes,
So
well, I
you can
did,
make it official.
I made that announcement early, everyone.
When you're on
She'll
TV, you
remind
get
us
credit.
one more time.
I was thinking about doing a Facebook Live.
So anyway, we did cancel, and Town Hall has also canceled, and so that means that we are going to have to cancel the interviews for tomorrow afternoon. So there were only 3, but to reschedule them means finding a date that 12 screening committee members and the 3 candidates can get together. So Christine is in the air, I believe, or maybe she's back. She was away for the weekend, and so I'll talk with her first thing in the morning, and we'll have to reschedule those as well.
Subcommittee and project reports. I can, let me report first on the long-term vision planning. Maybe we can get back to that at the next meeting, but a couple of developments on that. I had talked earlier about the Selectmen had a discussion of the advisory subcommittee's recommendation of the budget planning, so that will be helpful for us of what we come up with our long-term plan will help inform that long-term financial planning for the town. Also, the planning board is in the final stages of a master plan themselves for, I believe it's either a 5 or 10-year master plan. And tonight they had a meeting that I think they were finalizing it, so I'm gonna get a copy of that we can look at how they formatted it and structured it, and maybe that'll give us some ideas of how we wanna lay out our thoughts. And then one of the things Dr. Gallo and I talked about that we can start thinking towards is over the summer of, for the first time, doing a planning meeting with the senior leadership team and the school committee together. And the senior leadership team includes the 4 from central office and the high school principals. So it's a smaller group. And
the directors. Senior leadership team on the school side is
Oh, okay.
not the resource teachers, but the directors,
okay.
the principals, and the
Okay.
central office.
All the principals. All the
All the
principals.
principals.
Yeah. And so then for the first time for the school committee to join them so that we can have a little team building and get to know, we have some new people involved and to get to know everyone and then talk about and share where we're going with this vision and long-term planning so that we're
And
all on the
particularly about the
same
programmatic
plan.
stuff,
Yeah.
because I think we do a fair amount of sharing with the building kinds of project,
Yeah.
facilities things, with a whole range of people, but things that are programmatic, related to staffing, related to services and so on, to get together with the decision makers
Yeah.
on the school side, I think is very helpful.
So we'll fit that into the plan. And so hopefully, I will try and get that planning board master plan this week so I can share that with all of you, or at least I'll get the draft version of it because I saw a final draft version of it. So that at our next meeting we can start regrouping on this as well. Aileen already, you want to talk about policy, you already mentioned it.
Policy 10:30, Friday morning, and boy, I am glad I posted it today, I guess.
Yeah, each is April 5th at
Salary negotiations are meeting on Thursday, and I also posted today.
Long Range Planning, just a review at a meeting back in, since our last school committee meeting, and we went over those topics, which in fact were the capital outlay allocation and the ball field adaptation. Attended the CPAC meeting on the 8th of March. Dr. Jamie gave a very nice presentation. It was a very, very peaceful, calm meeting. It was very, very informative. I was very happy with the way the meeting went. Very, very receptive to the suggestions that the administration is making. SNAP is meeting tonight because they were canceled from last night, so if you'll bear with me, I brought in some announcements for the people at home, things that are coming up, and I printed them so I didn't. The SNAP in conjunction with CPAC is sponsoring this Thursday, March 16th, a presentation for parents, special needs planning for parents with respect to long-term wills and trusts for their kids. This will be held Thursday, March 16th, this Thursday, 7 to 8:30 p.m. The location is the HCAM TV Studio, 35 Pond Park Road, Suite 8 in Hingham. This is limited attendance. Go to the South Shore Snap at gmail.com, southshoresnap@gmail.com to sign up. Dr. Gallo did a notice in our handout. Again, SNAP is sponsoring the 3rd annual St. Patrick's Day Party. It's a fundraiser for SNAP. It'll be held Saturday, March 18th, this coming Saturday, 7 to 11 p.m. at the Community Center. Fundraiser for SNAP. The Hingham Sports Partners, a lot of sponsoring going on here.
There is.
Hingham Sports Partnership is sponsoring a 2-hour session designed to help our youth sports leaders and board members create an organizational culture. This is a leadership workshop. It's going to be Monday, March 27th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Middle School Distance Learning Center. And this is for the leaders of Hingham Youth Sports Organization. Not to be outdone, the Hingham SNAP is also sponsoring the Hingham Pizza Palooza. I highly recommend this. As a grandfather, I took 2 families to this last year. It's at the high school. This will be Wednesday, March 29th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Hingham High School cafeteria. $10 per person, $30 per family. It's a bargain. And last but not least, the SNAP group with CPAC is sponsoring a paint afternoon for kids with special education children. This is going to be held at the middle school. There are 2 time frames: preschool, elementary children, 12:30 to 1:25, and then the middle school children, 1:35 to 2:30. It's a pre-registration required. southshoresnap@gmail.com. And that, thank you, that will be on Saturday, April 8th.
Where are they having the paint? thing?
Middle
No,
school.
I'm wondering, where are they having
Acrylic
the
paints.
paint, the thing in our brand new middle school?
And then just you talking about the projects, I'll let John jump in because he's to be lauded on this. I think it's important for the members here in the committee as well as the people at home to realize that we're working on some issues that have come up at the installation of the bleachers at the field. We had John organized a conference call with the installer on a warranty basis. Several of us joined on a conference telephone call. And we're on top of some things that just plain are unsatisfactory, and I'll let John expand on that.
Yeah, that was an existing warranty item that was sort of opened up last summer, and they came down, they took a look at the problems that we had with the bleachers, such as blistering of some of the panels and some of the painting and the poly skirting board. So this was a follow-up, and they wanted to go through and explain to us how they plan to remediate it, and we got dates on schedule for them to begin that work. It's coordinated with athletics and stuff, so that we're not going to lose the use of the facility. So, with we had a lot of questions about the plan, but they were pretty upfront in saying this was just an incorrect installation, and they're going to make that right. And they have a new sort of baked-on enamel coating that they're supposed to be used for the bleachers. We look forward to trying to get those repaired, and then we'll work with them. Initially they don't want to extend warranty, but we're going to work with them to try to say, you got to give us the time to see if this new fix of yours, the new method is going to work. So, but that's it. So the some work will begin on the poly skirting. That's the field edge, right where you see the field. That first board that goes up there. That will be repaired as we go, probably when the weather turns nicer. You don't need any ambient temperatures for that. But then, for the new baked on an animal, it'll take, after we get out of school. You know, so that'll be, end of June.
Great.
And after tomorrow, add another day.
Yeah, what do we have 2 for days, 4 now?
4. It's amazing with this winter, when you think that, you know, for the winter of
Been pretty
15, we
warm.
had 6 days.
Yeah, so just for the record, what is now the last day of school?
Yeah.
It'd be the, I think it would be the 22nd right now. I think 22nd for high school, and then maybe the
Right.
21st for elementary, I think.
22nd is a Thursday.
Yeah?
Yeah, we have a difference, remember, because of the election day.
Right.
That's what I think. That's, I looked at it this morning, but I'm not sure if I remembered correctly.
So, we will wait for Wednesday until Wednesday morning. People, don't get. Yes, Carl. Oh.
That's a perfect example of when you need to wait until the morning. When the storm has ended, it's a matter of, are the lots cleared?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we can't do that on our own,
Yeah.
so.
So cleaning my garage, I found a newspaper, Hingham Journal from 2013. And it happens that there was a small little article this big about the school administration, or someone here ran a meeting with individuals running for school committee to sort of like, talk about, what it is, to be a school committee member. I would like to suggest that we sort of like entertain in bringing the candidates, because there's several candidates running, to a forum where we sort of like can talk about the budget and the various items that happens here, because obviously, what is televised that we meet every 2 weeks, but what is, is not televised is, although it is public, is the subcommittee meeting. I mean, I commend each one of the chairs of the subcommittees. It's a lot of work. So, I think would be important to sort of like help people understand that a little more.
I think back then was when we couldn't get any candidates.
Correct.
Yeah, it was actually
before-
the interest
Yeah,
candidate.
it was before. So I would encourage any of the candidates out there to reach out to the individual candidates, or even
And I think,
Dr. Gallo.
I think they
and-
all have, in fact, Megan's back up there.
Well, I will tell you,
Up here.
2 of my opponents have come over to my house and asked me for, and I fully expect my 3rd opponent to do the same thing.
So I think, I agree,
True.
any of us are available to share with them
Sure,
ideas, but,
absolutely.
that was done when, we couldn't
Yeah,
get
they
anyone.
didn't say who ran, whether it was the
Yeah.
administrators or the school
It was a
committee.
combination. It was
But-
any
okay.
members of the school
I was
committee
at that
and
meeting.
us,
We
but
were
it really
trolling
was
for-
to attract candidates.
Heather was there.
Heather was there, one of the ones that we did. I don't know if it was that one.
That
I
was
think we
the-
did them 2 different years.
The meeting that I think Carlos is referring to is when Paul Gannon came, and lo and behold, we set the hook.
No, this is a little article in the paper, yeah. Because there was an election that year for selectmen too, I think.
It may have been my year, and I jumped in I didn't go to that meeting, and I jumped in at the very last, like, 2 days before the deadline, so you never know, it's just still an open seat, so.
Exactly.
But, number 9, unless there's anybody else, but adjournment.
Motion to
Motion.
adjourn. Since I caused all the trouble.
I'll
It could be
second
you.
Carlos'
Okay.
motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.